Chapter 146. Heavens, what absolute art is this? Is this possible? How did he do it? So handsome, too handsome. He is even more handsome than senior brother Li, Imperial New Show Hall's disciples, some respected young men and women, some geniuses from large forces, especially the young girls. Their mouths were wide open and their eyes were wide open as they stared at Chen Hao's figure, unable to believe what they were seeing. Chen Hao had turned martial skills into art, the art of battle, the art of killing. His graceful and unrestrained footwork was sometimes light, sometimes violent, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, sometimes soft, and sometimes hard. It was as if he was stepping on musical notes, stepping on a rhythm, and coupled with his handsome and extraordinary figure, it caused the eyes of everyone present to explode. Yang Fan and Li Yifeng stared blankly. Enai Jianpei's deep eyes seemed to be a little dumbfounded. Yi Minghao frowned. His expression was so unsightly that it was like his father had died. Yin Fenghan's body was trembling, unable to catch his breath. 3 months ago, this guy was clearly on par with him. How did he become so powerful now? This unheard of peerless absolute art, what in the world was it? Similarly, Yunfian, Dong Fongjun, Zhao Xingqin, Feng Yuan and the rest of Zhenyuan Kingdom's people were also shocked. They had never thought that Chen Hao was actually hiding such an unimaginably powerful absolute art. Especially Zhao Xingqin, Feng Yuan and the other experts who had seen many things, they were even more shocked. This was simply using strength to the peak of perfection. There was no flaw at all. So handsome, so handsome, so handsome. Sister Shuya, he is so handsome. The little girl Xian Ying's eyes stared at Chen Hao without blinking, her 2 small hands grabbing Shu Ya's arm and shaking it vigorously as she spoke nonstop. But Shu Ya also stared with her eyes wide open, not replying. Heavenly Path Laws, Huang Qi and the experts on the rostrum who had reached another level stared at Chen Hao's figure for a few minutes. One by one, they said 4 words. Heavenly Path Laws. Only those who had reached a higher level could comprehend the laws of the Heavenly Tao. Only those who had comprehended a trace of the Heavenly Tao would be able to use the power of the lower cultivation realm to the pinnacle. All martial skills were like floating clouds in front of him. All power, in his hands, could turn something rotten into something magical. The combination of hardness and gentleness, the ultimate strength and yang, the 4 ounces of force, borrowing force to strike force, turning freely. Chen Hao, who was completely immersed in that wonderful state, felt the energy in his body circulate faster and faster with his movements. It surged like the yellow river, flowing along his meridians. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, boom. After fighting with Wei Chen for a full 10 minutes, Wei Chen was about to suffocate to death, and his strength was gradually weakening. At this moment, the crazily circulating energy in Chen Hao's body suddenly exploded, completely out of Chen Hao's control. An incomparably vigorous power, azure energy, immediately overflowed from his body in circles, setting off gusts of wind that directly bounced Wei Chen away. What happened next was even more shocking to everyone. Chen Hao's azure energy actually became more and more intense, more and more vigorous at this moment. Breakthrough. A natural breakthrough without any urging at all. It broke through on its own. Even Chen Hao himself was dumbfounded, revealing a hint of surprise. How did he break through? Clearly, his energy and mental strength had not been tempered to a sufficiently vigorous stage. I admit defeat. Wei Chen felt the terrifying aura on Chen Hao's body and no longer had the slightest desire to fight. He had almost suffocated to death just now. If he fought now, wouldn't that be asking to be played to death? Yes, it was playing to death. Not dying in battle. There was nothing more stifling than this. Phew! After letting out a long breath, Yang Fan's eyes shone with a radiance that was even sharper than a sword. He took another deep breath and said to Li Yifeng beside him, "He made me excited. Me too." Li Yifeng said, "Me too." What the 2 of them did not expect was that Enai Jianpei, who had been like a dead person from the beginning to the end, suddenly said. Chen Hao stepped on the screams and exclamations of countless girls and floated to his seat. His delicate and handsome face was calm and serious, as if the matter that had attracted everyone's attention had nothing to do with him. He was so cold that it made people's hair stand on end, and so deep that it made people go crazy. What made Huang Qi, Yunfian, and the others feel even more stifled was that after this guy came back, he directly sat cross-legged on his seat and actually closed his eyes to cultivate, completely ignoring the shocked and questioning gazes of the crowd. Seeing that he had entered into a state of cultivation, the crowd's hearts rose and fell. Especially when they thought of Chen Hao's performance after stepping into the Royal New Show Hall, they were even more shocked. Raising eyebrows unsheathed, soaring into the sky. Such a young man from a small county, just how high could he rise to? Even Huang Qi felt that it was impossible to measure. Please welcome the fifth contestant, the Qian Kingdom's Yi Mingho and the Sheng Kingdom's Tan Tai Lian. The vigorous and loud voice of the referee interrupted the crowd's astonishment. The fifth match, which was destined to be an intense battle, was finally about to begin. Before Chen Hao made his move, most people were more inclined towards the hidden Yi Mingho and the ninth-grade Emperor Yi Genius Tan Tai Lian. But after a short 10 minutes, although Chen Hao's opponent was not strong, it still made the crowd's hearts start to tilt. In the end, it directly fell towards Chen Hao's side. Almost everyone was sure that Chen Hao would definitely be among the top 5. Moreover, he would definitely be ranked 4th. As for whether he could be ranked higher, that was uncertain. Chen Hao could use his peerless secret technique to play around with Wei Qin, but it seemed impossible to play around with Ai Jianpain and the other two who were much stronger than him. Whoosh whoosh. Yi Mingho's eyes flashed with a trace of cold and hot light as he flew directly towards the arena. At the same time, Tan Tai Lian's beautiful face also turned slightly serious. At that very moment, not only did the crowd lean towards Chen Hao, but even the two of them had a feeling that whether they could advance to the top 5 and obtain the right to enter the 100 Empire ranking depended on the outcome of this battle. As for Chen Hao, they originally had a 70% chance of winning. But now, it was not even 30%. Humph, Tan Tai Lian, admit defeat. Don't waste my time. I don't know how to be gentle to women. I only know how to destroy them. As soon as he entered the arena, Yi Mingho, who had always been arrogant, had a cold look in his eyes and was full of disdain as he provoked her. Don't waste your breath. If you want to use this method to anger me, you will only lose more miserably. Don't forget, I am the Emperor Yi. Tan Tai Lian said indifferently. Dressed in a pink robe, her feet didn't touch the ground as she floated in the air. Her fluttering hair, graceful and exquisite figure, and beautiful and refined little face, coupled with her indifferent words, were indeed filled with a charm that would make the hearts of any youth palpitate with eagerness. The battle begins. The referee did not care about the two of them bickering and announced loudly. However, the two of them remained motionless and did not activate any energy. There was only a pure and powerful fighting spirit that continued to soar. Obviously, the two of them knew the importance of this battle, and neither of them dared to act rashly. In a moment, when their fighting spirit soared to the peak, the corner of Yi Mingho's mouth curled into a sinister and strange cold smile. In an instant, the number of Yi Mingho's shadows increased at lightning speed. Every shadow that appeared was close to 200 feet away from Tan Tai Lian. The distance of over 100 feet was almost instantly covered. As for Yi Mingho's shadow, when he was about 10 feet away from Tan Tai Lian, all the shadows suddenly disappeared. In an instant, he formed a circle around Tan Tai Lian. There was a total of 18 shadows. The highest level of the level 13 body motion martial skill, shape-shifting switching. Insignificant skill. Clang. The motionless Tan Tai Lian cried out. In an instant, a treasured sword that emitted a sinister aura appeared in front of her. With a swoosh, the treasured sword immediately turned into a ray of light. Under the control of her terrifying spiritual energy, it was like Chen Hao's flying dagger, but its speed was faster and more shocking. In an instant, it circled around her and attacked the 18 shadows almost at the same time. Ding! Rumble! The 18 shadows that terrified countless people were actually easily destroyed by Tan Tai Lian. She directly fought with Yi Mingho's real body. Lock! At the same time, Tantai Lien's glabella released a 5-colored invisible spiritual tentacle and instantly wrapped around Yi Mingho's real body. Ah, as expected of a level 9 intent emperor. Very good. This crown prince will let you experience my true power. Break for me. Yi Mingho laughed loudly. The sword in his hand suddenly flashed. With a rumble, a terrifying distortion appeared in the space between him and Tantai Lien. Not only did he break Tantai Lien's spiritual energy lock in one move, but at the same time, an extremely sharp aura without any color blended into the air and charged toward Tantai Lien. Spatial energy? Tantai Lien's eyes narrowed. Then, a bright light flashed in her eyes. She pinched her fingers together and formed a sword. Boundless spiritual energy immediately activated her treasured sword and charged toward Yi Mingho's attack. Spatial energy? This kid actually comprehended spatial energy? No wonder this kid is so arrogant, calling himself this crown prince. How big is this kingdom? Amazing! This talent is too abnormal. That's right, only martial gods can comprehend spatial energy. I'm afraid Tantai Lien is in danger. That's hard to say. Didn't you see that Tantai Lien is not afraid at all? Moreover, he can't display the true power of spatial energy. He doesn't seem to be that powerful. Just as the crowd began to discuss, Chen Hao had already opened his eyes. His bright eyes stared at the two people who were engaged in an intense battle. This Yi Mingho is indeed very strong. Fortunately, Tantai Lien is a level 9 intent emperor and has senses that ordinary people don't have. Kid, if you encounter Yi Mingho, you can't let your guard down. Did you see that? He used spatial energy to instantly set up traps in all directions of the arena, waiting for Tantai Lien to detonate them. This Tantai Lien is quite smart. P.S. I've finally finished the 4th update. Brothers and sisters, do you still have monthly votes? Chapter 148. First update. When I woke up this morning, I impatiently looked at the monthly votes. I simply didn't expect that the difference of 13 votes would become close to 30 votes. Dark Mountain couldn't bear to squeeze their brothers and sisters dry. Dark Mountain could clearly see that many brothers and sisters had cast 5 votes and even changed accounts to vote again with large amounts of rewards. Enough. What else is there for Dark Mountain to be dissatisfied with? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame our proud heavens for having too few readers. Dark Mountain will continue to fight. Thank you, everyone. The powerful spirit formation that enveloped the stage was only a layer of protection against the overflowing energy within the stage. It did not affect the crowd's perception of the battle within the stage. With Chen Hao's keen perception, even without Huang Qi's words, he had already sensed the terror of Yi Mingho's spatial energy. Under the control of Yi Mingho's powerful origin energy, the origin energy sword lights, which had their auras sealed by spatial energy, spread out like ticking time bombs in the area that Tantai Lien could move to. They were not waiting for Tantai Lien to detonate as Huang Qi had said. Instead, Yi Mingho could control, move, and detonate them at any time. As long as Tantai Lien approached any of them, Yi Mingho would immediately detonate them. What was certain was that if Yi Mingho's opponent was not Tantai Lien, who had extremely strong spirit perception, but a rank 9 martial emperor, he would have likely been killed by Yi Mingho. This. Tendrils formed by Tantai Lien's spirit power extended in all directions. Coldness and anger flickered on her exceptionally beautiful little face. She was simply unable to concentrate all of her spirit power to fight against Yi Mingho. Ding, ding, boom, boom. On the stage, Tantai Lien was several tens of meters away from Yi Mingho. She was controlling her treasured sword from afar. The space between her eyebrows was shining brightly. Her slender jade-like hands were constantly changing shapes and forming sword seals as she fought against Yi Mingho. The scene was as if Yi Mingho was fighting against an unmanned treasured sword. The entire arena was reeked in sword light, and the wind was surging. Even the hard ground made of special materials had traces of sword marks. What can you do to me with just this bit of power? Yi Mingho laughed wildly. With a boom, his body was like a cannonball. His speed suddenly increased by several times. As he swung his sword, It seemed as if it could cut through the void. A terrifying spatial fluctuation was forcibly cut open between Tan Tai Lien and her treasured sword. Yi Mingho opened his 5 fingers and grabbed Tan Tai Lien's sword. In your dreams. Boom, boom, boom. At this critical moment, Tan Tai Xian suddenly activated her terrifying mental power and condensed layers of protective aura around her body. With a hiss, she turned into a stream of light. She didn't care about the bomb left by Yi Mingho anymore and dashed away. In an instant, extremely terrifying explosion sounds continuously exploded as Tan Tai Lien flew. Even Yi Mingho did not expect Tan Tai Lien to be so strong that she could directly take on the traps he left behind. It must be known that these traps were all under his control and were connected to his mind. Therefore, as he was caught off guard, his mind was instantly greatly shaken. The hand that was grabbing Tan Tai Lien's sword immediately froze. With a pew sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Evidently, his mind was injured. That Tan Tai Lien roared. Blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth and her face was slightly pale. Tan Tai Lien, who had clearly suffered heavy injuries from the head-on clash, fiercely snatched her sword and activated all her spiritual energy. At close range, she slashed her sword at Yi Mingho. There weren't any exquisite moves. There was only a violent, overbearing, and destructive aura. Yi Mingho's face instantly turned ashen. He did not expect that a moment of carelessness would actually allow Tan Tai Lien to force him to such a state. He was completely infuriated and no longer thought of using tricks to win. With a wild roar, he instantly cut off all his divided mind. The origin energy around his body was activated violently as he brandished his sword to meet the attack. Clang. Rumble. A deafening sound of metal clashing accompanied by a terrifying explosion spread out from the stage. At the same time, there was a raging and terrifying energy fluctuation that caused the entire protective barrier to violently distort and churn. What powerful strength! Below the stage, countless disciples widened their eyes in shock. Even though they already knew that the two of them were powerful, they did not expect them to be so powerful. Without a doubt, this was the most terrifying collision of peak energy since the start of the rookie rankings. There had never been a battle that could cause the barrier to vibrate so violently. Other than the experts from the 3 great sects and Chen Hao, Yin Fenghan and the other top 10 disciples' faces were twitching in shock. Especially when Beiming, Nanmen Yi, and Wei Chen, who had fought with Yi Mingho and Tan Tai Lien to see if they could win by luck. At this moment, their hearts were filled with fear and they immediately erased this thought. Such strength was not something they could resist. Tan Tai Xian and Yi Mingho, who were in the arena, both tumbled and flew out. Only when they collided with the barrier did they land on the arena at the same time. Their clothes were riddled with holes, and their bodies were covered in blood. They struggled to stand up, but just as they stood up, they fell down again. They couldn't even get close to each other, let alone kill each other. The distance of several hundred feet was originally covered in an instant, but at this moment, it had become a chasm between the two of them that neither of them could cross. Both sides have suffered heavy injuries. This match is a draw. Each side gets 1 point. 10 breaths later, the referee announced the result of the match. At the same time, the protective barrier on the stage quickly disappeared. The people from the Great Chen Kingdom and the Great Victory Kingdom instantly ascended the stage and brought the two back. 5 matches have ended. 3 of the matches have been admitted. 6 contestants have not fought and need to be regrouped to continue the competition. The arbitration team has decided that the 6th match, Ni Jianpain against Nan Men. The 7th match, Yang Fan against Yin Fenghan. The 8th match, Li Feng against Wen Beiming. The 6th match, please enter the stage. In the top 10 competition, each person would fight 1 match per day. The matches referred to were real battles. If one admitted defeat, it meant that there was no exhaustion and they still needed to be regrouped. Unless a contestant had finished fighting with the other 9 contestants, then it was not included. After the referee announced the 6th, 7th, and 8th matches, Nanmen Yin Fenghan and Wen Beiming still chose to admit defeat. After switching opponents again, the 9th, 10th, and 11th matches, the three of them still admitted defeat. Ni Jianping, Yang Fan, and Li Feng each obtained 9 points without fighting. Nanmen Yi, Yin Fenghan, and Wen Beiming each admitted defeat 3 times in a row. The 12th match, Wen Beiming against Yin Fenghan. The 13th match, Ni Jianping against Li Yifeng. The 12th match, please enter the stage. The referee's voice sounded again. Wen Beiming was the strongest of the 3 weaklings who had not fought, while Yin Fenghan was the weakest. Similarly, Ni Jianping was also the strongest of the 3. Li Yifeng was on par with Yang Fan, but his overall evaluation was clearly inferior to Yang Fan, so he was allowed to face Ni Jianping first. And whether Yang Fan and Nanmen Yi would have a chance to fight depended on whether anyone admitted defeat in these 2 matches. If they did not admit defeat, they would not have a chance to fight. Victory and defeat had been decided between the 2 of them, while the other 8 had already fought. Wen Beiming and Yin Fenghan did not hesitate this time. The strong were not that much stronger, and the weak were not necessarily weak. They would definitely take a gamble. Soon the 2 of them fought. The difference in strength was not too great, so it was quite exciting. However, the audience's enthusiasm was not very high. They even wished that these 2 fellows could finish quickly, so that Ni Jianping and Li Yifeng's true peak battle could begin as soon as possible, but Wen Beiming and the damned eunuch Yin Fenghan were entangled in a melancholy battle. Neither of them used their ultimate moves, fighting to the death. They were both careful and cautious, especially the slightly weaker damned eunuch Yin Fenghan. His defense was watertight, and if there was any movement he would quickly bounce away. It was completely a defensive tactic. He wanted to exhaust the opponent until he could no longer hold back, and then strike the desired result. This made the audience even more depressed and pained the more they watched. Finally, Dongfang Jun, this fiery fellow, was the first to curse. Following that, it gradually spread to the entire martial arts practice field, erupting with curses of, damned eunuch, coward. The people of the Star Luo Kingdom were all filled with anger, but they were unable to stop it. After all, even among them, there were many who felt that Yin Fenghan was too embarrassing. To be able to charge into the top 10 was indeed the kingdom's pride, but fuck, how could he be a yin-yang person with a rooster's voice? You're already like that, can't you act like a man? After a full 10 minutes, the tortoise's strength was still lacking. Wen Beiming seized the opportunity and heavily injured him with 1 strike. Li Feng. Before the referee announced the victory, terrifying shouts erupted from below the stage. With the Empire's new show hall as the core, there were also the areas of Li Yifeng's family, as well as countless voices from different areas, erupting one after another. The sharpness, the loudness, and the craziness attracted everyone's attention. Clearly, the first expert was Ni Jianping, but it was completely overshadowed by Li Yifeng's shouts. A young girl yearning for love was unreasonable when she went crazy. At the same time, it clearly told everyone that Li Yifeng had extremely good relations with people in the Xuanwu Empire's new show hall, as well as the Empire's top forces and families, especially with women. The highly anticipated showdown between the strong had finally begun. Ni Jianping, who was as calm as a mountain, didn't feel the slightest bit of emotion towards the crowd's cheers for Li Yifeng. He only glanced at Li Yifeng beside him, and with a whoosh, he turned into a stream of light and flew onto the stage. Li Yifeng took a deep breath. His figure flashed, and he also flew onto the stage. At the same time, Chen Hao also took a deep breath. His eyes shone with a resplendent radiance. His abnormal perception instantly spread and scrupulously towards the stage. Chen Hao was incomparably looking forward to the showdown between super geniuses and Wu Zongs. This was going to be his opponent. He wanted to see how much stronger these 2 were compared to the level 7 Wu Zong demonic beasts. After watching the battle between Yi Mingho and Tan Tai Lian, Chen Hao had already confirmed that there was no problem in obtaining the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking. He had already achieved his first goal, but the sword had already been unsheathed. Chen Hao had no reason to take it back. If he wanted to do it, he would do his best and do his best. He would charge as high as he could. Clang clang. Two crisp sounds of swords being unsheathed rang out at the same time as the referee's voice. Boom boom. Immediately after, Jian Pain and Li Feng, who were separated by more than 1,000 feet, remained motionless. However, the air within a radius of several hundred feet around them was compressed to the point of exploding. Especially the air between the two, it was like the collision of elemental energy, surging violently towards each other. So damn strong, Dong Fongjun muttered. The two of them had yet to make a move, but the aura of Wuzong experts had instantly intimidated all the young disciples. P.S. Wushan will continue to edit the second part. I am very grateful to Brother Luo Shi's beloved Deng Ting for their 20,000 coins worth of monthly votes, Brother Weasel 22 for his 10,000 coins worth of monthly votes, Qin Yu and the other brothers and sisters for their monthly votes. Friends who still have monthly votes, please support Wushan. Thank you. Chapter 149. Second update. Dark Mountain continues to write the third update. Those with monthly tickets, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. Many thanks to the brothers and sisters who gave you red packets, monthly tickets, and book reviews. Thank you for your blessings. I have nothing to repay you with, I can only repay you with my body. I will write with my body, and let my brothers and sisters watch happily. Boom, boom. The extremely condensed light purple protective aura that symbolized martial ancestor realm experts appeared on both of them at the same time. What was different from the Emperor realm experts was that their protective aura seemed to be between reality and illusion. It was like a solid protective armor. In a short moment, it became more and more condensed, more and more condensed. The two who had fought many times in the Empire's new show hall seemed to have the same rhythm. Once again, they took a step forward at the same time, rushing towards each other. The swords in their hands directly tore through the air, like two scorching suns, stabbing towards each other. There was no sign of sword chi wreaking havoc. It seemed that everyone knew that purely relying on sword chi attacks would not be able to do anything to each other. Therefore, from the beginning, they had fallen into a head-on close combat. Ding ding ding. Boom boom boom. The moment the two figures met in the air, there was a dense and terrifying explosion of metal clashing and energy colliding. In the blink of an eye, there were hundreds and thousands of explosions. Their attacks were so fast that most people could only see the shadow of the sword. They could not see how many swords had been thrown out. However, the barrier that enveloped the entire arena seemed to have been stabbed by countless swords. In an instant, countless bulges appeared, one after another, endlessly rising and falling. Clang. After a violent head-on collision, the two figures separated in the air and fell to the ground. Li Feng staggered back a few steps. Every step left a deep footprint on the hard ground. After retreating a full 10 steps, he finally stabilized his body. There was already a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. As for Jian Pain, who had been sent flying, he stabilized his body within 5 steps. However, his expression was also not relaxed. He forcibly suppressed his surging blood. "I'll wait for you to catch up to my realm." After the two looked at each other for a few seconds, Jian Pain slowly put away his sword and said calmly, "Very soon." Li Feng smiled slightly and wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. His eyes flashed with determination as he said. At the same time, he also put away his sword. "That's it?" Dong Fongjun's eyes widened as he said in surprise. Many disciples in the martial arts practice field were the same as Dong Fongjun. They still didn't understand what was going on. When experts exchange blows, especially opponents who are familiar with each other, victory or defeat can be decided in one move. 981 sword strikes in an instant. That Li Feng can actually keep up. For now, Li Feng has lost in terms of cultivation level. What surprised Dong Fongjun, Yunfian, and even Huang Qi was that Chen Hao actually narrowed his eyes. His voice contained a powerful battle intent as he spoke slowly. What was even more shocking was that he even reported the exact number of strikes. Even an expert like Huang Qi wouldn't be able to do that. They had seen every strike clearly, but who would count how many strikes the other party had made? At best, it was a rough estimate. However, Chen Hao was able to pinpoint the exact position. The next day, the arbitration committee was even more direct in arranging the opponents. They didn't arrange a few matches at once, but arranged them one by one to screen them out. The first match, Chen Hao against Yin Fenghan. This damned eunuch chose to admit defeat without the slightest hesitation. Even though he wished to pinch Chen Hao to death, he did not hesitate. There was nothing he could do about it. With Chen Hao's current strength, if he were to go up against him, he was certain that with Chen Hao's temperament, he would definitely kill him without the slightest hesitation. Furthermore, he would not be able to resist. After Yin Fenghan admitted defeat, the judges arranged Nan Men Yi and Wen Beiming for Chen Hao. The two of them also chose to admit defeat. When he was only a rank 7 martial emperor, he was able to defeat Wei Qin. Furthermore, he had advanced to rank 8 martial emperor on the spot. Who would dare to fight against him? After that, it was Yi Mingho's turn. After that, it was Tan Tai Lian's turn. The results were the same. Yin Fenghan and the other 3 martial emperors who had never fought against the two of them also chose to admit defeat. After that, the judges arranged for Wei Qin, who had fought against Chen Hao the day before, to face the 3 martial ancestor realm cultivators. Naturally, all of them also chose to admit defeat. This arrangement caused the 4 martial emperors with low cultivations to be placed in the 3rd tier. However, the following arrangement caused the crowd to be shocked to discover that Chen Hao was not placed in the 2nd tier. Instead, he had been placed in the 1st tier along with the 3 martial ancestor realm cultivators. The reason for that was because Yi Mingho and Tan Tai Lian were first arranged to face an Ai Jianping. The two of them admitted defeat. Then they faced Yang Fan and Li Feng. The two of them admitted defeat again. Instead, they did not arrange for the 3 of them to face Chen Hao. Evidently, to the judges, Chen Hao's strength had definitely reached the level where he could contend against the 3 martial ancestor realm cultivators. Thus, it was very likely that he would have to fight against them. That was the reason why they had to do this sort of selection. Finally, after the expected elimination of matches, the first match was Chen Hao against Tan Tai Lian. This was the match that they had anticipated to be a true battle. Hua. Following the appearance of Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian, the martial arts practice field, which had been silent for half a day, was instantly filled with excitement. Everyone wanted to witness Chen Hao's supreme skill that allowed martial techniques to evolve into art. Everyone wanted to know if Chen Hao could still defeat Tan Tai Lian, who was much more powerful than Wei Qin. However, to everyone's slight disappointment, Chen Hao still performed the supreme ultimate technique this time. However, it seemed that Tan Tai Lian's spiritual energy was too strong, so he couldn't play around at all. He was even forced into a dangerous situation. The battle lasted for a full 5 minutes. The result was the same as yesterday's battle between Yi Mingho and Tan Tai Lian. Both of them were severely injured. It was a draw. This result made Tan Tai Lian, who only had a 30% chance of winning, very satisfied. However, she was also a little surprised. Even though Chen Hao's injuries were very real and he really seemed to have exhausted all his energy, she still felt strange. She was almost certain that Chen Hao had not used his full strength. Could it be that he intentionally let me win? Could it be that Tan Tai Lian, who was lying on the ground, stared at Chen Hao, who was also lying on the ground. She did not care about her injuries as she pondered. Her pale face actually shone with a tinge of red. That must be it. He could obviously defeat me, but he intentionally tied with me. When he defeats Yi Mingho, I will be 5th and successfully qualify for the 100 Empire ranking. When Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian were carried away by their respective people, Tan Tai Lian was still staring at Chen Hao in a daze. Huang Qi and the experts on the rostrum all frowned. According to their estimates, Chen Hao should have at least a 60% chance of winning. Why was it a draw? Could it be that Tan Tai Lian's mental strength was too strong and exceeded Chen Hao's range of control? Even though Chen Hao indeed looked like he was heavily injured, Chen Hao had a criminal record. More or less, it made everyone feel that it was a little strange. And Dong Fongjun, who clearly knew how much enmity Chen Hao had with Yi Mingho, saw that after Chen Hao returned and started to heal his injuries, this fellow's eyes darted around. It was obvious that he was very agitated. Others could not be sure, But Dongfang Jun's intuition told him that Qin Hao had done it intentionally. Even though the price he paid was a little high, dealing a blow to that idiot Yi Mingho was really satisfying. It was simply too satisfying. Dongfang Jun really wanted to laugh wildly at Yi Mingho right now, scold him in disdain, and ridicule him. However, he had to give some face to Qin Hao. Otherwise, with Qin Hao's good intentions, it would not be too obvious, right? Fuck. Yi Mingho was so angry that his face turned green. He gritted his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. Veins popped out on his face as his fighting spirit soared. His fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. He was not an idiot. Naturally, he could guess that Qin Hao might have done it intentionally. How could he not be angry? A raging fury was burning in his body, burning so much that he almost exploded right now. No one can stop my footsteps. No one. So what if I have a 40% chance of winning? Without Tantai Lian's sharp senses, my spatial energy will be able to unleash its greatest power. I will want you to die. Want you to die. Yi Mingho's eyes were almost spewing fire. He stared at Qin Hao's figure and roared in his heart. The next two matches were Yin Fenghan's group of 4. When Beiming won against Wei Chen, and Nan Men Yi won against Yin Fenghan. Immediately, the last peak battle of the day began again. Yang Fan against Li Yifeng. But the two fellows did not immediately go up the stage. Instead, they were arguing in a low voice. A draw? Yang Fan said. But I want to fight with you fair and square. 50,000. But we must fight. 100,000. 100,000. All right, I'll immediately cash it out. Motherfucker. Seeing Li Yifeng stretch out his hand, Yang Fan actually cursed gloomily. 100,000 pills to buy you not to bleed. Fuck, I'm bleeding. Do you think you can escape unscathed? Cut the crap, give it to me. Or we fight. Otherwise, I'll go back on my word. 100,000 pills, won't you win against me? Here. Yang Fan directly threw a storage ring to Li Feng. 2 contestants. At this time, the impatient judge shouted again. We often fight, and our strength is on par. Although I'm slightly better, I can't win. Although he's slightly worse, he can't lose. Judge, declare us a draw. Li Yifeng looked at the pills and said loudly in the direction of the stage proudly after confirming that there was no problem with the pills. Jian Pain secretly glanced at the two of them. His eyes flashed with a completely incomprehensible emotion. Intuition told him that Yang Fan was stronger and more terrifying. But Yang Fan was willing to pay 100,000 pills to buy a draw with Li Yifeng. This made Jian Pain completely unable to understand. This was out of the judge's expectations. He originally expected this to be the last match of the day, but the two of them declared a draw without fighting. This meant that Jian Pain and Yang Fan could fight. Because only the three of them and Yi Mingho had not fought yet. Yi Mingho had already admitted defeat to the three of them. And Jian Pain and Li Feng had already fought yesterday. Only Jian Pain and Yang Fan were left. Jian Pain, Yang Fan, you two can start. When the judge looked at the rostrum, Mu Qing frowned and directly announced. Hearing Mu Qing's words, Jian Pain looked at Yang Fan. Yang Fan and Jian Pain looked at each other and nodded lightly. With a whoosh, they rushed to the stage. Motherfucker! Li Feng cursed Yang Fan gloomily. Yang Fan, if you have the ability, defeat Jian Pain. Otherwise, I'll fight you to the death tonight. Second update. Begging for monthly votes, recommendation votes. New month, for results, I can only beg with all my might. Please. Come to vote for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 150. Third update. Begging for monthly votes, recommendation votes. Thank you, old teacher, for your 10,000 coins. Thank you, friends, for your blessings. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you. After seeing Yang Fan flying into the ring, Jian Pain took a deep breath, as a ferocious battle intent rose within his body. He then took a step forward and appeared on the ring, leaving behind a blurry shadow. Yang Fan had always been low-key. In the Empire's new show hall, being able to obtain the position of White Tiger Hall's chief disciple was only to obtain the corresponding benefits. In the 5 Great Hall's chief disciple ranking competition, he did not use his sword. That kind of battle where he was restricted by the rules was not suitable for his sword. When his sword was unsheathed, it would be stained with blood. 1 strike, 1 kill. Li Feng was his best brother. How could he use his true strength? But Enai Jianping was not. He did not have any relationship with Enai Jianping. If this was the Empire's new show hall's competition, he would definitely admit defeat, because he could not hold back. But now, there were no rules or restrictions. And Enai Jianping's strength made him excited. Staring at Enai Jianping, whose battle intent rose madly, the battle intent hidden in Yang Fan's bones made him more and more excited. But strangely, the more excited he was, the more restrained his aura became, and the more ordinary he became. Just like his ordinary face. If the people present did not know that Yang Fan was a martial ancestor expert, no one would think that he was an expert. On the contrary, Enai Jianping, who had never truly fought with Yang Fan, was very clear on how terrifying Yang Fan was. Firstly, Yang Fan had displayed that terrifying sword 2 days ago. Secondly, the 2 days of close contact made him understand that Li Yifeng was not Yang Fan's opponent. And when Li Yifeng fought with him, he only lost because of the difference in realm. There was pressure, but there was more excitement. The excitement that came from his bones made his blood boil. The aura on his body also rose madly. Below the arena, looking at Enai Jianping, who was trembling with excitement, but whose aura was still as heavy as a mountain, and the more he looked, the more restrained and ordinary Yang Fan, Li Yifeng held his breath. His heartbeat sped up. Even he had not seen Yang Fan's true attack. He had not even carefully looked at Yang Fan's sword. Could he defeat Enai Jianping? Li Feng was unable to be certain. However, he was certain that Yang Fan's current appearance was the most serious. Chen Hao, who was in the middle of healing, also stopped healing. His eyes were wide open, shining with bright light, and he also held his breath. The entire training field seemed to have been infected by Enai Jianping and Yang Fan's strange aura. It was so quiet that only the thumping of their hearts could be heard. Begin! After both of them had entered the zone, the referee's loud and dignified voice suddenly rang out. Wu. The moment the referee's voice fell, Yang Fan, who had already restrained his aura to the extreme, suddenly disappeared at an incredible speed. In an instant, it was as if he had turned into a gust of wind. But then, a gust of wind began to blow in the entire arena. The whistling sound was like a storm blowing through the valley, circling in the boundary of the arena. Enai Jianping's eyes suddenly shrank, and with a boom, he pushed his protective aura chi to the limit. His heartbeat quickened, and he was shocked. He had been prepared to receive Yang Fan's berserk sword, but he did not expect that Yang Fan would choose not to fight head-on from the start. What shocked him even more was that he could not lock onto Yang Fan's aura at this moment. Amazing! Chen Hao said in extreme shock. Chen Hao could clearly feel that Yang Fan's speed was not necessarily faster than Yi Mingho's, who had comprehended spatial energy. However, Yang Fan's aura was completely restrained, as if he had merged with the air, truly turning into the wind. Even with his powerful soul perception, it was difficult for him to lock onto Yang Fan's aura. The true essence of wind. Huang Qi said in surprise, this Yang Fan is actually close to comprehending the true essence of wind. Amazing! What does the true essence mean? Is it different from comprehending wind energy? Hearing Huang Qi's words, Chen Hao immediately asked in surprise. Huang Qi shook his head and said, "What's so surprising about comprehending wind energy? The true essence of wind energy is the same as the true essence of strength that you comprehended. It's a heavenly law. If you can use the strength of a martial artist to the extreme and display combat strength that surpasses your realm, then you've comprehended the true essence of a martial artist's strength. It's a type of heavenly law. Yang Fan is close to comprehending the true essence of wind energy. This is also a type of heavenly law that belongs to wind. When he truly comprehended it, he would be the wind, and the wind would be him. Unless one's realm surpasses his and reaches the martial saint realm, it's impossible to capture his aura. Although this young fan has not truly comprehended it, he has cultivated an ultimate technique that can restrain his aura. This allows him to act as if he has comprehended the true essence of wind energy in this gale, especially when he's fighting against an opponent of the same realm. This Enai Giant Pain is probably going to lose. Clang. Rumble. As soon as Huang Qi finished speaking, there was a terrifying sound of metal clashing in the arena. Then, there was a sudden explosion. Enai Giant Pain's figure was sent flying for dozens of feet before he stabilized and landed on the ground. His face was full of solemnity. All the hair on his body stood on end and cold sweat flowed down his body. Crash! This single exchange had caused an uproar in the entire martial arts arena. No one had thought that the #1 expert, Enai Giant Pain, would be forced into such a sorry state by Yang Fan. What was even more surprising was that everyone had only seen a flash of sword light. They had not even been able to capture Yang Fan's figure. It can't be? Yang Fan is actually so terrifying. Heavens, Enai Giant Pain is the #1 expert. Fuck, mother. Li Yifeng's expression was extremely strange. He was both excited and gloomy. However, one thing was certain. Li Yifeng was not gloomy because Yang Fan had refused to fight him. Instead, he was gloomy because Yang Fan had concealed so much from him. That sword strike was soundless and incomparably bizarre. Enai Giant Pain had hurriedly received it. However, Li Yifeng could sense that if it had been him, it would have been difficult for him to receive it. Enai Giant Pain had also received it by luck. If it had not been for his sharp intuition that had sensed great danger and blocked it in the shortest time possible, he would have been severely injured by Yang Fan's sword. Yes, he would be severely injured, not dead. This was because Yang Fan had locked onto a spot slightly above his back. Obviously, Yang Fan had no intention of killing him. However, even if he did not die, he would only be left with a single breath. Boom boom boom. Enai Giant Pain quickly calmed down. The Yuan power around his body instantly surged out and actually formed 3 layers of protective qi in a radius of 30 feet around him. This was definitely extremely exhausting for Yuan power, but at this moment, he had no choice but to do so. This was because he could not capture Yang Fan's aura at all. Following which, Enai Giant Pain placed his sword in front of him to protect himself. You've lost. At this moment, the gale suddenly stopped. Yang Fan's figure slowly appeared 10 feet away from Enai Giant Pain as he spoke indifferently. Enai Giant Pain was slightly taken aback. With a trace of doubt, he immediately understood. He slowly withdrew the sword in front of him and said, "I've lost." Yes, he had lost. 3 layers of protective qi was enough to give him ample time to react. However, how long could he last? On the other hand, Yang Fan, who had retracted his aura as if he had merged into the wind, did not consume any energy at all. He was completely waiting for an opportunity to strike. "You're very strong. I can't defeat you in a head-on battle," Yang Fan said frankly. "A loss is a loss. There's no need to give me a way out. I'll challenge you." Enai Giant Pain quickly regained his confidence and said in a firm tone, "You're welcome anytime." Yang Fan smiled and floated down the arena. The outcome was unexpected. At this moment, Yang Fan's ordinary face suddenly became lofty in everyone's eyes. No one had thought that Yang Fan would be able to defeat Enai Giant Pain. However, he had won so easily. Late at night, the starry sky was resplendent and a cool breeze blew gently. Chen Hao, who possessed the so-called undying bloodline, had intentionally suffered heavy injuries and had already recovered completely. He had indeed intentionally tied with Tan Tai Lian. It was not because of Tan Tai Lian's appearance. It was just that Tan Tai Lian was lucky to become a tool for Chen Hao to defeat Yi Mingho. Just as Chen Hao had said, he normally did not bear grudges. In such a bloody competition, no matter who killed who, it was a matter of course. This was the law of the entire empire. Hatred was hatred, but no one dared to use this matter to take revenge. However, The conflict between Yi Mingho and Yin Fenghan with Chen Hao and Dong Fongjun deepened. Yin Fenghan, that damned eunuch, had already missed the opportunity. Chen Hao did not want to let go of Yi Mingho, who he loathed even more. Therefore, he could not display too much strength in his battle with Tan Tai Lien. Otherwise, Yi Mingho would definitely choose to admit defeat. Then he would really have no chance. And to tie with Tan Tai Lien was undoubtedly the best choice. Firstly, he did not display too much strength. Secondly, this would allow Tan Tai Lien to obtain 1 point. If Yi Mingho wanted to enter the top 5 and obtain the right to enter the 100 Empire ranking, he could only fight with him. Otherwise, he would not have any chance. As long as he dared to stand, Chen Hao could kill him. That bullshit spatial energy was of no threat to him. But Yang Fan's true essence of the wind attribute made Chen Hao feel a real threat. At this moment, Chen Hao was already on the roof of his residence. He quietly sat cross-legged for a full 2 hours. His mind and body were clear as he sensed the gentle breeze that surrounded his body. The 5 elements are extremely derived attributes. They all have their own true essence. To comprehend them, one can only comprehend them quietly and carefully. Not only does it require comprehension, it also requires a certain level of talent and opportunity. Some people will not be able to comprehend them in their entire lives, while others can instantly comprehend them. Even I have not comprehended the true essence of any attribute. Otherwise, I would not need to seal my own strength. After returning, Chen Hao asked Huang Qi about it, and Huang Qi said it was for him. Talent, opportunity, enlightenment. Wind, shadowless, formless. Chen Hao carefully comprehended, his mind grasping the aura of the wind between heaven and earth. At the same time, the wind attribute energy within the 5 elements' spiritual roots slowly circled around his body, as if it had captured something, but also as if it had not comprehended anything. Time passed second by second. Chen Hao sat motionlessly under the night sky, comprehending. Are there any more monthly votes or recommendation votes? Please vote for Dark Mountain, thank you. Chapter 151. First update, looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. My new book needs everyone's support. The monthly votes ranking is the key to improving the results. The results are measured by the number of readers who subscribe to the original version. Therefore, I implore those who have the ability to subscribe to the original version. This is the basis of the website's recommendation. Dark Mountain's 1 month of hard work only cost a few dollars, not even enough to buy a pack of cigarettes. Dark Mountain believes that those who can afford to go online should not lack that few dollars. Most people are afraid of trouble, not because they can't afford it. But your subscription is the driving force behind Dark Mountain's writing. If you like Proud Heaven, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. The night quietly passed, and the east began to light up. The laws of the heavenly Tao, the true essence of attributes, looks like it's not that easy to comprehend. Chen Hao slowly opened his eyes and shook his head as he muttered to himself, merging with nature, merging with all things in the world, sensing the aura and trajectory of life. So I've only reached the most superficial level. All things have life, but there's a difference between normal and abnormal. Wind is formless, shadowless, impermanent. Wanting to comprehend the true essence is indeed not an easy task. Jumping down from the roof, Chen Hao knew that it was almost time to leave. He did not want to attract too much attention, so he directly entered his room. After an entire night, it could be said that he had gained something, but it could also be said that he had not gained anything. That kind of feeling that he had faintly grasped, but was unable to grasp, seemed to be waiting for an opportunity to comprehend. Just like what Huang Qi had said, what was needed was not only talent and comprehension, but also opportunity. It could not be forced. A new day had begun once again. The first 2 matches were the battles of Yin Fenghan, Wen Beiming, and the other 3 who were at the bottom. Although there was nothing to look forward to, it still showed everyone that the disciples who were able to enter the top 10 were after all the top geniuses of the empire. Their battle talent was indeed high, and could not be compared to normal geniuses. Jinyuan Kingdom's Chen Hao, Deqian Kingdom's Yi Mingho, please enter the stage. Voila! As the referee's voice rang out, the somewhat dull martial arts practice field immediately boiled up and discussions began. The main topic was whether Chen Hao had deliberately fought to a draw with Tan Tai Lian. Most people were inclined to believe that Chen Hao had done it on purpose. In the Xuanwu auction house, the conflict between Chen Hao and Yi Mingho was known to everyone who had qualified for the rookie competition. Secondly, most people were more inclined to believe that Chen Hao was interested in the beautiful Tan Tai Lian. Of course, there were also many who felt that Chen Hao's true strength was at this level. Otherwise, who would be willing to suffer such heavy injuries? Moreover, it was in the most important competition of the Xuanwu Empire and in front of all the important characters. As for what the truth was, it would soon be revealed. Yi Mingho glanced coldly at Chen Hao, his face still filled with extreme arrogance and disdain. With a flash, he flew towards the arena. Chen Hao, who always had a calm expression, smirked, revealing a devilish aura. At the same time, he flew into the ring. Tan Tai Lian's matches had all ended, and her fate had already been determined. If Chen Hao won, she and Chen Hao would both advance. If Chen Hao lost, she and Yi Mingho would advance. Although Chen Hao still had 3 matches that had yet to begin, his opponents were Ni Jianping, Yang Fan, and Li Fei. He was almost certain to lose. Of course, the premise was that his battle with her was real. If it was a draw, the 3 of them would have the same points, and they would probably have to fight again to determine it. However, the probability of this happening was very small because Tan Tai Lian knew that Chen Hao and Yi Mingho had a grudge against each other. This battle was destined to be crazy, and it might even be a battle of life and death. Taking a deep breath, Tan Tai Lian's beautiful eyes flickered with an indescribable emotion. She looked at Chen Hao, who was on the arena. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Yi Mingho stared at Chen Hao and said gloomily. At the same time, his aura suddenly soared. What else do you have to say? Hurry up and say it. You won't have a chance in the future. Chen Hao's expression was calm with a trace of coldness as he spoke indifferently. Naturally, his arrogance was awe-inspiring. He actually just stood there, without any rising battle intent or flowing aura. He stood there calmly, as if he didn't place the upcoming battle in his eyes at all. Isn't he too arrogant? He doesn't care about Yi Mingho at all? At this moment, countless people thought to themselves. Tan Tai Lian furrowed her brows. She became nervous for no reason. She deeply understood how terrifying Yi Mingho's spatial energy was. If she wasn't a 9th-stage emperor intent and had extraordinary senses, she probably wouldn't even know how she died. However, Chen Hao, no chance? This crown prince wants to see who doesn't have a chance. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Yi Mingho actually said arrogantly. After saying that, he laughed disdainfully. Boo. At the same time, Yi Mingho suddenly activated his dark blue body protective energy, the symbol of a peak rank 9 martial emperor. His aura began to frantically soar. His expression was filled with arrogance and despotism. He was looking down on all living things. The gaze with which he looked to Chen Hao was filled with contempt and ridicule. Seeing this scene, the referee frowned slightly. The reason for that was because he had yet to announce the start of the match. According to the rules, Yi Mingho could not activate his body protective energy first. Just as the referee was about to say something, his eyes suddenly opened wide. Just when everyone thought that Yi Mingho's aura had already soared to its peak, the air in the entire arena suddenly surged violently. The energy of heaven and earth actually converged towards Yi Mingho at an astonishing speed, like 100 rivers flowing into the sea, a myriad of streams returning to their source. Hiss, hiss. After a short moment, Yi Mingho's dark blue body protective energy actually entered his body. Bang! At the instant it entered his body, it once again blossomed with resplendent light. However, what caused the entire martial stage to go into an uproar and suck in a breath of cold air was that Yi Mingho's body protective energy had actually turned light purple. The light purple color that symbolized martial ancestor realm. Martial ancestor realm. Yi Mingho actually advanced to martial ancestor realm. Heavens! Are you kidding? How could this be? How could he be this fast? Martial Ancestor Realm. That boy actually advanced to Martial Ancestor Realm? Yang Fan, Li Feng and Enai Jianping all opened their eyes wide in shock. Huang Qi, Yunfian, Dongfang Jun and the others all sucked in a mouthful of cold air and stood up in shock. The barrier from rank 9 Martial Emperor to Martial Ancestor Realm was extremely difficult. Even for super geniuses, it would take them at least a year to break through. Enai Jianping, Yang Fan and Li Feng were all top-notch geniuses. However, they had been stuck at rank 9 Martial Emperor for half a year. It was only right before the new talent list ranking competition that they managed to barely advance to rank 9 Martial Emperor. However, Yi Mingho, who had advanced to rank 9 Martial Emperor using the 9 Revolution Emperor pellet, had actually advanced to Martial Ancestor Realm. Astonishment! No one was not astonished. Everyone knew that Yi Mingho had deliberately broken through the barrier at this moment. Could it be that he had already comprehended the barrier when he was facing Tan Tai Lien? That was very unlikely. If he had comprehended the barrier at that time, how could he not have broken through and allowed himself to fight Tan Tai Lien to a draw? Evidently, Yi Mingho had comprehended the barrier after his battle with Tan Tai Lien. As for what the truth was, it was no longer important. What was important was that Yi Mingho had already advanced to Martial Ancestor Realm. This Crown Prince is a heavenly genius. Even the heavens are looking after me. You are indeed very powerful. However, that was only yesterday. Of course, this Crown Prince must also thank you for completely infuriating this Crown Prince. If it wasn't for you, this Crown Prince would likely have needed some more time to break through to Martial Ancestor Realm. Oh, referee, are you still not going to start? I am already unable to wait, Yi Mingho said arrogantly. As he spoke, he removed his protective barrier. Hearing Yi Mingho's words, the referee took a glance at Qin Hao. Seeing that Qin Hao did not have the slightest intention of admitting defeat, he straightforwardly announced the start of the match. Boom, boom. Right after the referee finished speaking, the two of them both activated their protective barriers. This Crown Prince will let you know who the true genius is. Die thoroughly. Boom. Yi Mingho did not use the apparition shifting phantom. Instead, he stomped his feet and instantly, 2 deep pits appeared on the extremely hard ground. His entire body was like a cannonball as he charged towards Qin Hao in an extremely violent manner. Clang. Buzz. His body moved and his sword unsheathed. With Yi Mingho as the center, the space within a radius of 100 feet was strangely distorted. After advancing to Martial Ancestor Realm, his control over space energy had obviously increased by countless times. Streaks of devastating and terrifying sword chi that contained space energy enveloped Qin Hao with a brilliant heavenly aura. Yunfian, Huang Qi, and the rest were all worried for Qin Hao. Just as Yi Mingho was insufferably arrogant and wanted to rely on his absolute strength to slay Qin Hao in one fell swoop and charge towards Qin Hao. Qin Hao, who had a calm and cold expression, also moved. Qin Hao took a step forward. Suddenly, his body shook violently. In an instant, streaks of energy surged around him, causing a gust of wind to surge within a radius of several feet around him. It made people clearly feel that a vigorous power that was as strong as the mountains and the seas and as strong as Yang was condensing on his body. As his palms drew an arc in front of him, Qin Hao let out a violent roar. He struck out with his palm. Rumble. The sky changed color and the earth shook. The azure palm energy contained a trace of pure yang energy, like a flash flood or a river bursting its banks. What shocked everyone was that it seemed to have condensed into a giant dragon, roaring as it surged out from Qin Hao's palm. Martial arts secret technique, dragon subduing palm. Qin Hao's palm was far from the 18 dragons subduing palms in wuxia novels. It also had 18 palms, and it was one of Qin Hao's ultimate martial arts, one of the fiercest, most violent, and most powerful ones. And now, the power displayed could not be compared to Earth, which was lacking in spiritual qi. Not only did he condense all the energy in his body, he also integrated a trace of pure yang energy from the 9 revolving heavenly sun technique. Boom. Boom. The power of the palm actually blocked Yi Mingho, who was in the martial arts grandmaster realm, and forced him to stop. You're indeed deliberately fighting to a draw with Tan Tai Lien. Very good. This kind of power is still like the light of a firefly to me. Yi Mingho's figure condensed. He did not waste the meaningless sword chi. With a buzz, his sword vibrated, and he became one with his sword, charging towards Chen Hao again. Chen Hao's terrifying palm was actually pierced through by Yun Mingho in an instant. It was as if he had truly torn apart the void as he crossed a distance of over 30 meters in an instant. The sharp, condensed, and terrifying sword instantly locked onto Chen Hao's forehead. Fast. Really fast. Go to hell. Seeing that his sword was about to hit Chen Hao, Yi Mingho, who was majestic like a god, exploded with a loud roar. P.S. Looking for monthly votes, recommendation votes, subscriptions. Dark Mountain will continue to write the second update. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 152. Second update. It's the middle of the month. Brothers and sisters, please check if there are any monthly votes for Wushan. Thank you. At that moment, everyone's attention was focused on Yi Mingho's slash. Between heaven and earth, there was only that extremely fast slash that seemed to tear the void apart. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet, that swift and fierce slash approached with sparks, but Chen Hao still did not draw his sword. Not only that, the violent aura of extreme yang on his body was disappearing at a shocking speed. Had he given up? In reality, it was only a split second. Most of the people present only saw Yi Mingho's shocking slash. Only the experts on the platform and those above the martial arts grandmaster realm could catch the change in Chen Hao's aura at that instant. However, even though they saw it, no one knew what Chen Hao was going to do. At that moment, the best choice was undoubtedly to gather the energy around his body and face the attack with his sword. However, Chen Hao did not do that. Furthermore, not only did he not gather his energy, he seemed to be withdrawing all his energy. Just as the tip of Yi Mingho's sword was about 10 feet away from Chen Hao, the aura on Chen Hao's body finally disappeared completely. There was no longer any energy fluctuation. However, whoosh. To everyone's disbelief, Chen Hao, who no longer had any energy fluctuation, suddenly retreated at a shocking speed. The sword light that was about 10 feet away from Chen Hao could no longer get close to him. What was even stranger was that Chen Hao's movements looked like catkins floating in the wind. Drifting Yang Fan's pupils suddenly shrank, and he widened his eyes in shock. The true essence of the wind? These words appeared in the minds of countless people at that moment. Chen Hao finally succeeded at the last moment when Yi Mingho's shocking slash was about to reach him. That slash, which contained the power of space, was simply too fast. It was so fast that it exceeded everyone's expectations. Not only that, Yi Mingho, who had stepped into the martial arts grandmaster realm, also had the energy contained in his slash, which posed a great threat to Chen Hao. In that split second, hastily raising his sword to face the attack, Chen Hao would definitely be seriously injured. It was unwise. With his speed, there was no way for him to dodge. If the other party was someone else, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if Chen Hao was injured. But his opponent was Yi Mingho. This kind of arrogant birdman could only be completely, and unharmed. Only then would he be able to feel at ease and his thoughts clear. Chen Hao had been comprehending for an entire night, but he had only vaguely touched upon the true essence of the wind attribute. However, at this moment, Chen Hao, who had always lingered in his mind and was still immersed in comprehending, suddenly had the so-called opportunity. Comprehending the operation of the 5 elements, the mystery of yin and yang in heaven and earth, comprehending the power of the laws of heaven and earth, comprehending the true essence of the wind, on the rostrum, the eyes of the numerous figures flickered with a bright light as they stared at the extraordinarily handsome Chen Hao. His calm expression, cold gaze, and straight figure brought an enormous shock to everyone's hearts. Every day, every battle, caused everyone to have a deeper understanding of the youth before them. Chen Hao, victory! The loud and clear voice of the referee interrupted everyone's shock. Chen Hao's figure flashed and floated back to his seat. Huang Qi's old face carried a wisp of extreme shock and envy. He trembled slightly as he stared at Chen Hao, who floated back. It was simply impossible to describe his feelings at this moment. Obtaining the 5 elemental spirit root, comprehending the profundity of the 5 elemental energy, and possessing a trace of the yin and yang aura of heaven and earth. Although Chen Hao didn't say these, Huang Qi could guess that Chen Hao had obtained great opportunities in the 2 ruins. But what about the true essence of the wind? Motherfucker, it was only yesterday that this fellow knew what the true essence was, and asked him what he should do if he wanted to comprehend the true essence of elemental energy, but now, monster. Kid. Huang Qi's voice carried extreme envy and jealousy as he spoke. Good kill, huh? Chen Hao, brother Chen, boss Chen. I love you to death. Pa. Fuck off. At the moment when Dongfang Jun pounced over to hug Chen Hao kicked Dongfang Jun's butt and scolded him with a glare. Excited, that's all. If I really hugged him, I would feel disgusted instead. Senior Sister Yun, hug him for me. Dongfang Jun said indifferently. He actually dragged Yunfian into it. Yunfian originally wanted to hug Chen Hao. The reason for that was because it was truly pleasurable. Not only was Chen Hao's strength and talent pleasurable, even more pleasurable was the fact that Chen Hao had killed that loathsome Yi Mingho. Furthermore, the method he used to kill him was simply too pleasurable. As for bloodiness and all that, to hell with it. Yunfian didn't care about it at all. She only felt pleasurable. However, after hearing what Dongfang Jun said, she glared fiercely at him and no longer had the courage to hug him. Amazing! This Chen Hao is only a rank 8 martial emperor. Yet, he was able to easily kill a martial ancestor realm expert. The strength. Say, if he were to fight against Li Yifeng, who would win? Of course it would be Chen Hao. What about Enai Jian Pain? Is there even a need to ask? What about Yang Fan? Chen Hao. Needless to say, this Chen Hao was a combat genius. Motherfucker, every single time, we would think that he would have no hope at all. Every single time, he would be able to easily win. Did you not see the astonished gazes of those experts on the viewing platform? I'm afraid that it is not only us. They're the same. People like him are super existences that become stronger the more they fight. That's true, although I still feel that Yang Fan and Enai Jian Pain are more powerful, that's right. It's a pity for that Yi Mingho. He had already become a martial ancestor realm expert. He was stronger than Tantai Lian. Yet he died. I truly don't understand why the experts on the viewing platform didn't join the battle. The 100 Empire ranking is the symbol of an empire's honor. It would be even better if true experts were to join it. Indeed. Although Yi Mingho was too arrogant and I wanted him to die, for the sake of the empire's honor, it would be better for him not to die. There was a lot of discussion in the martial arts practice field. They were shocked by Chen Hao's valiance to Yi Mingho, who had been killed by Chen Hao. Many people clearly did not understand why there were no rules in the new talent ranking competition, especially when it was time to decide the disciples who would be qualified for the 100 Empire ranking. What if Li Yifeng and the others were also killed by Chen Hao? Wouldn't they have to let the clowns behind them fill in the gaps? Very good, very good. At that moment, Mu Qing suddenly floated up from the viewing platform. When he was in mid-air, his face was glowing with excitement. His eyes were fixed on Chen Hao as he spoke. After he slowly landed on the arena, his gaze swept across the martial arts practice field. The crowd that was in a heated discussion immediately quietened down. The disciples who will be qualified for the 100 Empire ranking have been decided. Chen Hao, Yang Fan, Enai Jian Pain, Ling, Tantai Lian, the white-haired but youthful Mu Qing said slowly with a smile. Whether it was intentional or not, Chen Hao's name was actually mentioned first by Mu Qing. Could it be that in Mu Qing's heart, Chen Hao was already stronger than Yang Fan and the other two? Originally, Yi Mingho's strength was already above Tantai Lian's, but he was killed by Chen Hao. Our new talent ranking competition has never had any rules. However, the old man still hopes that there will be a good outcome. According to the decision of our arbitration group, we've temporarily evaluated the top 5. In fact, we've only evaluated the combat strength of Chen Hao, Yang Fan, Ni Jianping, and Li Fit. The evaluation results are out. Chen Hao is first. Crash. When Mu Qing said that Chen Hao was first, the entire martial arts practice field was in an uproar. They had seen Chen Hao's strength. However, they were not sure if he could defeat Yang Fan and the other two. After all, Yang Fan and the other two were not people that Yi Mingho, who had just become a martial ancestor, could compare to. The reason is very simple. Chen Hao's strength level might not be on par with the three of you, especially Ni Jianping. However, he has comprehended the true essence of wind and is stronger than Yang Fan. Not only that, he has also comprehended the profundity of using strength. With these two types of laws of heaven and earth, the three of you have a 70% chance of losing. Of course, if you still have hidden strength that you haven't exposed or if you don't agree with our evaluation, you can issue a challenge. Second update, seeking monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 154. First update. Very, very depressing. Yesterday, I wrote a wrong word in the single chapter. Many brothers and sisters might have misunderstood. Dark Mountain said rookie rankings end, not new book rankings. It was a plot problem that needed to be conceived. Dark Mountain did not start 2 updates after the new book was over. Was Dark Mountain's character that bad? Dark Mountain said that he would fight. Fight continuously. Not just during the new book period. He wrote a wrong word, and there was only 1 monthly ticket for today. Was Dark Mountain so untrustworthy? In fact, Yang Fan and the other two had seen Chen Hao's ability today. They did not have much chance of winning, but they still wanted to spar. But since Mu Qing had said so, Yang Fan and the other two naturally understood what she meant. They could only suppress their desire to fight, and recognized second, third, and fourth respectively. Tantai Lian was lucky enough to be 5th. The top 5 rankings were out. The rankings of the bottom 4 did not have much meaning. Mu Qing also determined their rankings based on their current battle results and performance. Similarly, anyone who disagreed could challenge them. But at this point, who still had hidden their strength. Similarly, no one challenged them. The rookie rankings that had lasted for several days finally ended. Mu Qing presided over the award ceremony. Chen Hao, Yang Fan, Ni Jianping, Li Yifeng, and Tantai Lian followed the empire's Emperor Xian Songfeng and the experts from the sects on the rostrum towards the depths of the palace. Little Hao, later, no matter who invites you to accept, don't accept the sect chosen by the 100 Empire rankings for the time being. Your strength should be at the 2nd level among all the disciples on the 100 Empire rankings, but your talent is at the 1st level. Even if you can't get a good ranking, you will still have a lot of choices. It won't be too late to decide then. Do you understand? Just as Chen Hao and the other 4 followed the experts into the depths of the palace, Dong Fongting's voice rang out in Chen Hao's mind. Thank you for your reminder, senior. If you don't want to call me aunt, then don't call me senior. A year later, if nothing goes wrong, you should be a disciple of a sect. You can call me senior sister. This? Yes, senior sister. Chen Hao hesitated for a moment before replying via voice transmission. Chen Hao felt that Dong Fongting was not bad, at least much better than that idiot Dong Fongjun, although Dong Fongjun did not hate him now. However, Chen Hao never liked his arrogant and domineering personality. On the other hand, Dong Fongting, the pride of the Jinyuan kingdom, was not arrogant in front of him. Furthermore, his training in the Cloud Mountain range had been of great help to him. However, Chen Hao couldn't call a woman who looked to be in her 20s his aunt. No matter what, he wasn't just 15 years old. Adding up the age of his 2 lifetimes, he was definitely much older than Dong Fongting. Senior sister, are you going to participate in the 100 Empire rankings now? Chen Hao asked. Even now, Chen Hao knew nothing about the 100 Empire ranking apart from its name. Huang Qi and the others had never mentioned it, and he had never asked. But thinking about it, it should be similar to the rookie list. Yes, but also no. The 100 Empire ranking is very different from the rookie list. It is the only way for the cultivation world of the Eastern continent to select talented disciples from the secular imperial court. Any disciple who enters the 100 Empire ranking will temporarily have the qualifications to enter another level, which is the real cultivation world. Being able to display talent and strength and being chosen by a powerful sect is naturally the best. However, even if you are not chosen, you can still become a member of the real cultivation world. You will know this later. After 10 minutes, Chen Hao, Yang Fan, and the other 4 followed the crowd to a vast and magnificent palace in the deepest part of the palace. First of all, congratulations to the 5 of you for obtaining the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking and becoming the pride of the Xuanwu Kingdom. After everyone sat down and Chen Hao and the other 4 were arranged to sit in the middle of the 5 seats, the Emperor of the Empire, Xian Zongfeng, looked at the 5 of them with a gentle and kind gaze. Entering the 100 Empire ranking means that you can obtain the qualifications to enter another level. And you will be like the other perfected persons present and become the backing of the Xuanwu Kingdom. Your family and loved ones will be protected by the Empire. Alright, here are 5 sets of information. The 5 of you can take a look first. After Xian Zongfeng finished speaking, 5 brown scrolls floated in front of Chen Hao and the other 4. From the eyes of Yang Fan and the rest, it could be seen that they were the same as Chen Hao. They did not know more about the 100 Empire ranking than Chen Hao. Quickly flipping through the scrolls, the 5 of them revealed shocked expressions as they read the contents of the scrolls. Fate, opportunities, heaven and earth spiritual chi, historical remains. It is actually produced like this. Chen Hao and the other 4 were extremely shocked. There was not much information, and the 5 of them finished reading very quickly. However, the shock in their hearts was indescribable. That was especially true of Chen Hao, who had always had doubts about the other level. Did it exist in another world or in a mysterious area in the boundless world? However, this information gave him a clear explanation. It existed in the boundless world. However, it was an independent space. The boundless world was only a general concept. The word boundless contained the meaning of having no limits. The true cultivation world had a close relationship with the secular dynasties. The secular dynasties were the foundation, origin, and most primordial existence of the true cultivation world. What restricted the 2 levels were the mysterious and irresistible laws of the heavenly Tao. The 100 Empire ranking was not the only way for martial artists and intent practitioners to enter the true cultivation world. There was another way, and that was to break through the cultivation realm. When one could break through the limits of martial artists and intent practitioners and enter the golden core realm, they would be restricted by the laws of the heavenly Tao and enter the true cultivation world. However, this method was undoubtedly difficult and long. After obtaining the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking, one would obtain the qualifications to enter the true cultivation world in advance and enter with the cultivation of a lower martial realm. Their cultivation speed would increase by 10 times, or even 100 times. Before entering, the cultivator would leave behind a strand of their blood essence, mind, and life aura to merge with the royal bloodline of the empire. This would allow the cultivator to form a mysterious connection with the dynasty. After that, the higher the cultivation of the cultivator and the greater the achievements, the stronger the royal bloodline they left behind would be. The stronger the royal bloodline, the thicker the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the empire, the more luck and opportunities there would be, and the more ancient relics and inheritances there would be. Do you all understand? Seeing that Chen Hao and the other 4 had finished reading the information and were deep in thought, Xian Zongfeng smiled and said, "In the future, our empire will have the 5 of you to rely on. This 5-sided token is a spirit treasure refined by the true cultivation world. It only has one function, and that is to bring you into the cultivation world. After you refine it, it will open in about 3 months. As for the 100 Empire ranking competition, it will be a year later." Xian Zongfeng paused for a moment before continuing. In other words, after entering the true cultivation world, you will have 9 months to cultivate by yourself. The cultivation environment there is 10 times, no, 100 times better than our secular world. I only hope that after you enter, you will work hard to cultivate and try your best to raise your ranking on the 100 Empire ranking. Only then will you be able to enter a powerful sect. Of course, the prerequisite is that it must be built on the foundation of preserving your life. There is something that Mu Qing did not say earlier, but there is no harm in telling you now. That Yi Minghe was indeed a rare genius of our Xuanwu Empire. He should not have been killed by Chen Hao. However, do you know why we did not stop him? Character. Arrogant and conceited, he did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Such a person would basically be killed if he entered the cultivation world where geniuses and experts gathered. Once he died, everything would be gone. What was the use of being a genius? Moreover, he was only a genius of our Xuanwu Empire. Alright, this is your token. After you return, refine it with your blood essence. Now, force out your blood essence and inject it into the royal bloodline of our Xuanwu Empire. After Xian Zongfeng handed the 5 tokens to the 5 of them, he glanced at the woman beside him, Xian, and said, Xian, enlightened masters, let's have you work together. The effect will be better. Xian nodded slightly. Dongfang Ting and the other experts also responded. Rumble. Following Xian Zongfeng's continuous release of majestic and pure energy, the ground in front of Chen Hao's group of 5 actually slowly split apart. A resplendent golden light rose up, emitting a mysterious and profound aura. Blood essence. Xian shouted at Chen Hao's group of 5. At the same time, the experts present suddenly soared into the air. Everyone's body began to emit a pressure that made Chen Hao's group feel terrified. Puff, puff, puff. Chen Hao's group of 5 immediately spat out a mouthful of blood arrows toward the golden light. Sacrifice. Following everyone's shout, the 5 blood arrows were instantly enveloped by majestic energy and merged into the golden light. At the same time, Chen Hao's group of 5 felt their minds rumble. Their energy, and spirit actually withered a lot in an instant. However, what shocked Chen Hao's group of 5 was that at this moment, their perception actually spread out at a terrifying speed. 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 100,000 miles. It was as if they were following a huge dragon entrenched underground that ran through the entire Xuanwu Empire, advancing without any obstruction. When the 5 people's energy, and spirit were almost completely drained, the resplendent golden light slowly dissipated. Finally, the fusion of Chen Hao's group of 5 with the royal bloodline aura was completed. Dongfang Ting immediately walked toward Chen Hao, but Xian was even faster. She domineeringly blocked Dongfang Ting behind her and arrived in front of Chen Hao. With a wave of her jade-like hand, a stream of pure energy began to pour into Chen Hao's body. With a trace of a smile on her face, she said, Chen Hao, in 3 months, you will enter the cultivation world. I have high hopes for you. You don't need to care too much about your ranking on the rookie list. You just need to complete the training under the premise of preserving your life. When the time comes, our sword faction will choose you. My name is Xian, and I will be your senior sister from now on. Thank you, Spiritual Master Xian. The 100 Empire ranking is also a kind of training. Since I'm participating, I will do my best. Chen Hao smiled faintly as he spoke with a calm expression. His tone was ambiguous, and he neither refused nor agreed. You probably don't understand the situation of the cultivation world. Our sword faction is a 6th rank faction. It is an extremely powerful existence. Being able to enter is undoubtedly the best choice. Furthermore, with senior sister's care, your future will naturally be better. Alright, you just need to remember what I said. Xian smiled slightly and did not force him. Her expression was extremely confident. With Chen Hao's talent, he could be considered top tier among all the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking. However, his cultivation level and battle strength could only be ranked in the middle. When the time came, the factions that would choose him would at most be 6th rank sections. With her words now, she believed that Chen Hao would choose the sword faction. This is the first update. Requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. Wushan continues to write with all his might. The climax is over and the plot is over. I hope that my friends can also give their monthly votes and recommendation votes to Wushan. Thank you. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to give your recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 155. Second update. Begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Wushan will continue to work hard. Third update, please everyone. The pursuers are ferocious. I urgently need the support of my brothers and sisters. When he returned to the martial arts practice field, the award ceremony was just about to end. Chen Hao was the last to enter the arena and receive the huge reward of being first on the rookie list. Shu Ye took the little girl Xian Ying and directly followed Chen Hao and the others out of the imperial palace. Chen Hao already knew the little girl Xian Ying's identity. After learning of her purpose, he readily agreed and carved the little girl's high-quality purple crystal jade into a statue of the empire's emperor, Xian Congfeng. There were still a few small pieces left. He very kindly carved one of them into a jade pendant similar to his sister Chen Yan's. As for the rest, he kept them as part of his reward. Whoosh! 5 days later, a young man's figure flew through the void as fast as lightning and appeared above a huge city at the border of the Jinyuan kingdom. Gazing at the city that had undergone earth-shattering changes, the young man revealed a trace of surprise even though he already knew the news. The young man's clothes were as white as snow and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He was extraordinarily handsome. His slightly gentle but angular face naturally exuded a cold aura. His black and deep eyes were like the stars in the night sky, shining brightly. This young man was not just anyone. It was Chen Hao, who had returned from the Xuanwu Empire. There were only about 3 months left before the token would be activated. At that time, he would enter another level of time. It was unknown when he would be able to return again. Chen Hao, who had not returned for 3 years, returned to the Royal New Show Hall. When he learned that Helian Wuzi, Mo Yui, Xiao Ling, Xiao Jian, Xiao Jishan, Xiao Jifei, and the others who had just joined the Royal New Show Hall, Chen Hao directly returned to Yunzhou County. Gazing at the huge city below him, familiar figures appeared in his mind one after another, causing ripples of excitement to appear in Chen Hao's usually calm mind. The headquarters had already been moved to the core of the Cloud State County. Deep in the inner courtyard of the Xiao family, in an exquisite and elegant courtyard, a middle-aged man dressed in ordinary clothes was watering the flowers. Suddenly, he frowned slightly and looked up into the sky. A faint smile appeared on the middle-aged man's ordinary face. Then, as if he did not see anything, he continued to water the flowers. However, his slightly trembling hand revealed the excitement in his heart. Chen Hao's divine sense slowly swept across the Xiao clan. What made Chen Hao feel gratified was that the entire Xiao clan actually contained an extremely powerful array formation, causing the heaven and earth spirit qi within the Xiao clan to be several times denser than the outside world. Hey! Hi! In the Xiao clan's martial arts practice field, thousands of young men and women were in high spirits. Under the leadership of a stalwart middle-aged man and several instructors, they were performing uniform movements. It was obvious that these disciples had only joined the sect for half a year. However, their auras were much stronger than the Xiang generation disciples from 3 years ago. Among them, the auras of the youngest boy and girl were clearly stronger than all the new disciples. They were already on the verge of breaking through to martial warrior. Looking at the familiar scene, Chen Hao withdrew his aura and silently appeared at the edge of the martial arts practice field. The middle-aged man standing on the high platform was the head instructor, Xiaoguan. When Xiaoguan saw the young men and women beside Chen Hao, his pupils shrank and his eyes widened in shock. At this moment, he was already a 9th-grade martial emperor and had already been promoted to an inner court elder. However, he was still the head instructor of the outer court disciples of the Xiao clan. What surprised him was that there was actually someone who could silently approach the martial arts practice field. How could he not be shocked? However, when he saw the young man who did not emit any aura, Xiaoguan's shock and slight nervousness immediately turned into a frown, and then an intense joy. Chen Hao. You're Chen Hao? Disciple Chen Hao greets head instructor Xiao. Chen Hao smiled and clasped his fist at the shocked Xiao Guan. Good. Xiao Guan hurriedly bowed to Chen Hao and then gathered the energy in his dantian and shouted, "Old Xiao, patriarch, the chief guest elder Chen Hao is back. Chen Hao is back." Boom boom. Xiao Guan's excited voice sounded like thunder in the Xiao clan. After shouting several times, he finally stopped. Immediately, he excitedly went to Chen Hao's side. "Brother, brother." In the martial arts practice field, Xiao Nan and Xiao Yan immediately screamed and rushed to Chen Hao, whom they had not seen for 3 years. When they got close to Chen Hao, Xiao Yan's figure flickered and actually jumped high into the air, directly flying towards Chen Hao. Chen Hao opened his arms and looked at his cute and beautiful sister with a gratified and excited expression. The excited Xiao Nan glared at Xiao Yan, who had jumped into Chen Hao's arms and stopped. Her eyes were burning as she tightly grabbed Chen Hao's hand. "Brother," Xiao Nan said in a trembling voice. "Big brother." Little Yan, who had burrowed into Chen Hao's arms and hugged him tightly, cried out with a sobbing tone. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After Xiao Guan's thunderous voice sounded, countless figures in the entire Xiao clan immediately rushed out from every room in the inner academy. One of them flew through the air at an astonishing speed and soon appeared in front of Chen Hao. It was old Xiao. Disciple Chen Hao greets old Xiao. Chen Hao hastily put Xiao Yan down and bowed. This was the greeting of a junior to an elder. Good. Old Xiao, whose appearance had not changed at all, stared at Chen Hao in a daze. He excitedly helped Chen Hao up and said, "Superior grade martial emperor." Good, good. Soon after, the Xiao clan's family head, Xiao Ding, and the Xiao clan's elders all rushed over. When Chen Hao saw the familiar figures appear one after another, his emotions surged. This was especially so when he saw that everyone's cultivation had increased at an astonishing speed. Old Xiao's aura was clearly that of a martial ancestor realm cultivator. Xiao Ding had also become a superior grade martial emperor. Chen Hao knew that all these changes were due to the sufficient supply of medicinal pills. Of course, old Zhao's improvement was mostly due to the complete longevity art. When everyone greeted and bowed to Chen Hao felt his status in everyone's eyes. Aside from old Xiao, even Xiao Ding looked at him with reverence. Just at this moment, a graceful figure that Chen Hao was familiar with flew over at lightning speed. When her gaze locked onto Chen Hao, her figure immediately froze. She stared blankly at the youth who was smiling at her. She was not stunningly beautiful. However, there was a faint blush on her charming and gentle face, as well as an unconcealable excitement. Junior? Xiao Mei wanted to call him junior brother. However, she could not bring herself to do so. Her junior brother, her former junior brother, was already the Xiao clan's true backer. He had an extremely high status in the entire Jinyuan kingdom. Was junior brother still something that she could call him? Sister Mei. Chen Hao called out with a faint smile. Chen Hao's return was bound to cause a commotion. After exchanging greetings with everyone, Chen Hao carried Xiao Yan, who was wrapped around Chen Hao like an octopus. Then he pulled his little brother and headed to the small courtyard where his parents lived. When he thought of his mother, who used to be emaciated and worked hard for the family, Chen Hao felt a stab of pain in his heart. And now he had finally, with his own strength, freed his mother from that unbearable life. When he thought of his mysterious father, Chen Hao felt even more puzzled and curious. Brother, what's your current cultivation? Xiao Nan was high-spirited. She raised her head with a fiery gaze as she looked at her idol and asked. Rank 8 Martial Emperor. In the future, you will catch up to your big brother. Work hard. Chen Hao patted Xiao Nan's head and said with a trace of pampering. That's not important. As long as I can catch up to big brother, it's fine. Big brother, Sister Mei often tells little sister and me that if we want to see you, we must work hard to cultivate. Otherwise, we will become people from 2 different worlds. Big brother, is that true? Of course not. Big brother will often come back. Chen Hao was slightly startled. Please. You only come back once every 3 years. Big brother, Xiao Yan hates you. Xiao Yan, who was in Chen Hao's embrace, pouted and said. Don't speak nonsense. Big brother is doing this for cultivation. A real man should aspire to travel far. How can I come back to see you every day? However, big brother, if you're free, you should come back more often. Mother talks about you every day, and little sister too. What surprised Chen Hao was that Xiao Nan, who was only 10 years old, actually spoke in a manly manner. That tone, that expression, it was extremely similar to his father's when he participated in the Cloud Province's martial gathering. Aren't you still? Xiao Yan said to Xiao Nan in dissatisfaction. Big brother, Anan? Right at this moment, Xiao Nan suddenly frowned. She seemed to want to say something but hesitated. This caused Chen Hao to be slightly startled. Father, he is not an ordinary person. Xiao Nan finally said in a low voice. How do you know? Chen Hao asked in astonishment. Father did not allow Xiao Yan and I to cultivate the Xiao family's internal techniques. He taught us a set of techniques. Father told us to cultivate diligently and come to your side. Big brother, tell me, Father is clearly an ordinary person. How could he have a cultivation technique? Moreover, when you left Cloud Province, he told us to start cultivating. Otherwise, with our current cultivation, we would not have been able to become martial warriors so quickly. Have you asked Father? Chen Hao said with a serious expression. He knew that his younger brother could no longer be looked at as a child. Compared to the him who had not fused with his soul back then, his mind was much more mature. I did ask, but Father did not say anything. He only said that one day we would know. Big brother, did you also realize it? Don't ask in the future. Father must have his difficulties. Chen Hao said. As they spoke, Chen Hao saw a small independent courtyard from afar. At the entrance of the courtyard, his mother was looking around. His mother's appearance had changed greatly. Her complexion was rosy and she was obviously 10 years younger than before. Tianxi, the familiar voice trembled with excitement as Chen Hao's mother jogged over to Chen Hao. Chen Hao hurriedly put Xiao Yan down. With a flash of his body, he mysteriously appeared in front of his mother. He bowed and knelt on the ground. Mother! P.S. Second update. Are there any more monthly votes? Please vote for Dark Mountain. Thank you. Xiao Jifei's name was written wrongly as Xiao Jihan. Sorry, it has been changed. Begging for monthly votes, recommendation votes, subscription votes. Com to vote for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 156. Looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Brothers and sisters who still have monthly votes, please support Wushan. In the blink of an eye, nearly 3 months had passed. Buttface, who had entered the Demon Cloud mountain range alone, returned 3 days after Chen Hao returned to the Xiao family. After 3 years, Buttface was still simple and honest. What made Chen Hao gratified was that Buttface was still the same as before. Even today, when Chen Hao's status had risen to the level that everyone in the Xiao family revered, Buttface still called him Brother Tianxi and looked at him with the same eyes as his younger brother, Chen Nan. After Buttface's return, less than half a month later, Helian Wuzi, Mo Yui, Xiao Ling, Xiao Jian, Xiao Jishan, and Xiao Jifei also returned to Yunzhou from the Royal New Show Hall. This was what Chen Hao told Huang Qi when he returned to the Royal New Show Hall from the Xuanwu Empire. However, Chen Hao didn't let Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui come back, but the two of them still came back. As Chen Hao's closest friends, they knew that Chen Hao was about to leave. It would be at least 2 years before they would meet again after this separation. After Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui returned to Yunzhou, Helian Wuzi returned to the Helian family for half a day and returned to the Xiao family that night. Mo Yui also returned to the Mo family for 3 days. However, the two of them were suppressed by Chen Hao and began to cultivate. Every day, they had to endure Chen Hao's terrifying attacks. They couldn't even breathe. Mo Yui was fine, he didn't have any burden in his heart. However, although Helian Wuzi didn't show it on the surface, she was gnashing her teeth in hatred. She did have to cultivate hard and use all her strength to cultivate, but could he be a little gentler? Could he give her a smile? Could he say something that had nothing to do with cultivation? She even suspected that Qin Hao didn't see her as a woman at all. How many times had he said that beauty was a source of trouble? In the past, she didn't have such subtle thoughts because she was small and he was smaller. But now? Why did he seem to turn a blind eye to her thoughts and her appearance? Xiao Jishan, Xiao Jifei, Xiao Ling, Xiao Jian, but face, Chen Nan, Chen Yan, Xiao Jifei's younger brother, Xiao Xiangting, who was in the same generation as Qin Hao. Even Xiao Mei, who had missed the best age for cultivation, and Xiao Feng, who had been pursuing Xiao Mei for several years and finally succeeded half a year ago, had spent 3 months under Qin Hao's torture. Chen Hao had already understood Xiao Mei's thoughts 3 years ago. On the other hand, Chen Hao was most happy to see her being together with Xiao Feng. Xiao Mei was the first mature girl that Qin Hao had come into contact with. As someone who possessed the mentality of an adult, Xiao Mei had stirred up ripples in his heart during their time together. However, Chen Hao knew that it was just an impulse from his other half, and not love. However, what Chen Hao didn't know was that some things weren't as simple as they seemed. Chen Hao also poured different levels of 5 elements energy into each person's dantian according to their cultivation. Not only these young people, even old Xiao, who was a rank 3 martial ancestor, Xiao Ding, who was a rank 7 martial emperor, as well as the city lord Li Ran, who was also Xiao Ling's grandfather, Chen Hao also poured 5 elements energy into their dantian. It seemed that the path to the peak was destined to be lonely and lonely. However, Chen Hao wanted to change all of this. Tianxi, what are your plans? As the time of Chen Hao's departure approached, Chen Hao's father, who hadn't talked much since his return, finally called Chen Hao to a secluded room in the courtyard in the dead of night. Father, what are you talking about? Chen Hao's expression was calm, but his heart was filled with anticipation. After you enter the cultivation world. The light in Chen Hai's eyes became distant as he said faintly, Father knows that you have long suspected my identity. Not to mention you, even Xiao Nan is suspicious. Father can only tell you now that your mother and I are both from the world of cultivation. What? Chen Hao opened his eyes wide in shock. Although he had already guessed that his father wasn't simple, he was still stunned by his father's words. Don't be so surprised. Don't let your mother know about this and don't ask her. Even if you ask her, she won't know. Alright, let's not talk about this. Father knows everything that you've done in these 3 months. However, since you have the heart of an expert, why do you still have so many worries? If you're worried about us, I can tell you clearly that since you've already walked on this path, it's impossible for me to not care. Thus, you can be at ease. In the secular world, no one can harm us. The path of cultivation is to seize fate from the heavens. You alone will have to face 9 deaths and 1 life. Do you want to help everyone defy the heavens and change their fate? Since you've embarked on this path, you must be undistracted and brave. All the worries and fetters must be erased from the bottom of your heart. The heavens are ruthless. Only ruthless people can defy the heavens. Otherwise, you will eventually follow in the footsteps of your mother and father. Chen Hai stared at Chen Hao and said in a firm voice. However, Chen Hao caught some information from his father's words. After pondering for a while, he looked straight at his father and said in a firm voice, Father, I know what you mean, but forgive me for not being able to do it. Otherwise, even if I reach the peak, it's meaningless for me. I don't care about the heavens' laws. In my heart, I have my own path. You have your own path in your heart. Chen Hai's calm expression was suddenly shocked by Chen Hao's firm and persistent words. Yes, Chen Hao said. There was one more thing he didn't say. That was he had made a mistake once. He would never make the same mistake a second time. His father's meaning was very obvious. Only by discarding all distracting thoughts and cultivating without any distracting thoughts and without any distracting thoughts, and only by cultivating emotionlessly would he be able to step foot onto the peak. Once upon a time, he had also reached the pinnacle of countless domains. Although it wasn't cultivation, it had the same principle. What was the point of reaching the peak in solitude like snow? His father's words also vaguely told him that he and his mother had failed in the word love. Chen Hao was unable to determine exactly what was going on between his father and mother, But he knew that with his father's current expression and words, if he was given another chance, he would still end up like he did now. He also adhered to his own path in his heart. He hadn't been able to be undistracted. Until now, he hadn't been able to do it because he was still worried about himself. He was worried about his situation after he stepped into the world of cultivation. He persuaded himself to do what he couldn't do. Sighing softly, Yang Hai didn't say anything more. Instead, he changed the topic and said, "You have completed the first realm of carving skills. Everything in the world in a static state has traces and patterns of life that can be followed. It's already not bad that you're able to reach this level in such a short period of time, but it's still not enough. The next step is to try and capture the dynamic life trajectories and patterns, turning the unfathomable into a regular pattern. When you can control their life trajectories, you'll have truly reached the peak. This is also a kind of heavenly law." "Yes, Father, the nameless old man. Do you know?" "The nameless old man? Oh no." To Chen Hao's surprise, Yang Hai frowned slightly and asked directly, "Who is he?" "He appeared more than 100 years ago. There are many legends about him. His carving skills are what you said, that there is nothing in the world that he can't carve. Is he a man or a woman? How old is he?" Yang Hai suddenly asked with a trace of shock. According to records, his voice was hoarse and very old. His appearance, gender, and name were all ominous. That's why he was called the Nameless Old Man. "Father, this is the information about the Nameless Old Man. I think it should be related to you." Chen Hao could feel that his father really didn't know and didn't deliberately hide it from him. Chen Hao hurriedly took it and quickly looked through it. He became more and more excited. When he saw the pictures of several treasures left by the Nameless Old Man, what surprised Chen Hao was that his father's hands began to tremble, but there was a trace of determination in his eyes. He slowly closed his eyes and waved to Chen Hao, saying, "Go. I've said what I want to say. Step into the world of cultivation. If someone in the secular world knows about your carving skills, remember, you can say that you got the teachings of an old man by chance. As for where you met him and what he looks like, you can make it up yourself. Remember, don't expose me. Also, don't be an enemy of the person who asked you. Think of him as an elder." "I'm sleepy." The night was as cold as water. When he walked out of the room, Chen Hao's furrowed brows slowly relaxed. He couldn't ask more about things that his father didn't want to talk about. He thought that this conversation should be able to more or less unveil his father's mystery, but he didn't expect that not only his father, but even his mother had become more mysterious. 3 days later, in the dead of night, a dense aura suddenly seemed to tear the void and shrouded the Shao family. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth within 100 miles suddenly surged towards the Shao family. This huge commotion immediately caused all the cultivators in Cloud State City to be alarmed and fly to high places. And in the Shao family, old Shao, Shao Ding, Chen Hao's parents, Helian Wuzi, Mo Yui, Shao Ling, and others rushed to Chen Hao's room at the first moment. Everyone knew what the appearance of this aura meant. Boom! An explosion suddenly sounded from the roof of Chen Hao's room. A bright light soared into the sky, and an ancient and mysterious aura suddenly filled the air. After a moment, Chen Hao, with a shocked expression, slowly rose up like a god. "Take care." Looking at the crowd that was desperately rushing over, Chen Hao's gaze slowly swept across everyone's faces. His expression became calm and unhurried, and he said extremely calmly, Brother Tianxi, boss? Chen Hao." When everyone cried out, Helian Wuzi, whose expression was ice-cold like an ice mountain goddess, finally couldn't hold it in anymore at this moment. Her absolutely beautiful little face that was as cold as the moon was instantly filled with tears. As if she had gone crazy, she flew up high into the air and charged towards Chen Hao, who was already enveloped by the light pillar. It was just that, when they had only approached a distance of 10 feet, they were blocked by a powerful energy and were unable to approach in the slightest. But what made everyone cast sidelong glances and made Chen Hao frown was that Helian Wuzi actually raised a berserk energy and collided with it with a rumble. Chen Hao stared at Helian Wuzi, and a smile appeared on his face. He seemed to have said something, but no one could hear it. You wait. Hellion Woozy, who failed to collide, shouted loudly at Chen Hao, who was about to disappear into the distortion of space in an instant. Hiss hiss hiss. After a short moment, Chen Hao's eyes were still fixed on Hellion Woozy's beautiful little face that was almost crazy. But the scene in front of him made Chen Hao understand that he had been brought to another level by the token, the world of cultivation. Brothers and sisters who still have recommendation tickets and monthly tickets, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Luo Shi, for the reward of 10,000 coins to promote to Master Aotian. Thank you. Com to vote for recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. Chapter 157. P.S. First update. I'm so sad that I only have one monthly vote. Brothers and sisters, can you give Dark Mountain a bit of excitement and excitement? Good or bad results are very important to every author. Writing a story requires inspiration and passion. Looking at the dismal results, any author's heart would turn cold. I implore brothers and sisters who still have monthly votes to give Dark Mountain a bit of encouragement. Give your monthly votes to Dark Mountain. Thank you. The sky was blue, clear, and untainted by a speck of dust. It was clear as if it had just been washed, and it was dotted with white clouds that were dyed with the glow of the sunset. The world was filled with thick and pure spiritual energy of the world. The mountains rose and fell, and the trees were lush. The air was filled with an intoxicating freshness. Just a light breath would make one feel relaxed and happy. Phew! This world of cultivation is indeed not bad. The spiritual energy of the world is actually so dense and pure. Even without pills, this kid's cultivation speed will increase by more than 2 times. The treasure-hunting sword's spirit thought in Chen Hao's mind. Right at this moment, the space 30M in front of Chen Hao suddenly fluctuated strangely. After that, an enormous black pagoda stele appeared out of thin air and stood towering before Chen Hao. From top to bottom, the pagoda stele was densely covered with the names of at least 1,000 people. At the top of the pagoda stele were 5 golden words inscribed in immortal script, the rankings of the 100 dynasties. Chen Hao stared at the names on the pagoda monument and took a deep breath. He slowly closed his eyes. In his mind, he swung his sword and cut off all the emotions that his family, friends, and that beautiful face that was like a cold moon brought to him. The way of the heavens was heartless. He could not be heartless, but with his perseverance, he would definitely not be indecisive. He had to put down what he needed to put down for the time being. He would not waste time on meaningless worry and longing. Slowly opening his eyes, Chen Hao's deep, black eyes became extremely clear. His handsome and otherworldly face exuded a cold and resolute aura as he took a step towards the pagoda monument. He slowly extended his hand, and the aura of the token immediately appeared in Chen Hao's palm. At the same time, Chen Hao fiercely pressed his palm against the notch on the pagoda monument. This was a test that all disciples of the 100 Empire ranking had to undergo after entering the world of cultivation. The Spirit Treasure Pagoda stele would analyze each disciple's energy, realm, and aura according to their battle prowess, and produce a preliminary ranking of the 100 Empire rankings. Hiss hiss hiss. The moment Chen Hao pressed his hand into the groove, a bright golden light rose from the pagoda stele. A mysterious and dense aura directly enveloped Chen Hao's body, and Chen Hao slowly closed his eyes. Chen Hao? Just as Chen Hao lasted for about half a minute, Yang Fan's figure appeared in front of the tower monument. Then, a figure appeared every half a minute. Ni Jianpain, Li Yifeng, and Tan Tai Lian also appeared one after another. They all looked at their surroundings with a trace of surprise, then looked at Chen Hao with bright eyes. The disciples who were qualified for the 100 Empire ranking would be teleported to different locations and times. Basically, it was carried out according to the ranking of the empires. Between empires, they would appear in different areas and locations. However, the disciples of the same empire would appear in the same location in a short period of time. This was because the 5 of them had the same set of tokens. The bright golden light lasted for a full 5 minutes before slowly fading away until it disappeared. The moment it disappeared, Chen Hao withdrew his hand and suddenly opened his eyes. At the same time, two golden words suddenly flashed from the bottom of the black pagoda stele and slowly rose up. When it reached the middle of the stele, the light disappeared and the words became smaller, appearing among the countless names. 673. Chen Hao gazed at his name with a trace of astonishment in his eyes. He took a deep breath and read in his mind. Only 673? Yang Fan's group was also filled with astonishment. Although they had not fought Chen Hao's battle prowess was undoubtedly the strongest among the five of them. But Chen Hao was actually only ranked at the 673rd place. Furthermore, they knew that at this moment, not all the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking were present. Although the probability of an expert appearing later was not high, it was not impossible. The 100 Empire ranking was just a name. There were not only 100 empires, but hundreds of empires. Currently, there were only a little over 1,000 names on the pagoda stele. Chen Hao slowly withdrew his gaze and turned to look at Yang Fan's group. He smiled and cupped his fists in greeting. Without saying anything, he soared into the sky. Wait, Chen Hao. Are we not together? Among the four, Li Yifeng, who appeared to be the most carefree, immediately called out to Chen Hao. Sorry. I like to be alone. Chen Hao's indifferent voice sounded. His figure instantly became a small dot and disappeared into the horizon. Yang Fan and Jianping frowned slightly but did not say anything. However, their expressions were clearly dissatisfied and puzzled by Chen Hao's arrogance and unsociability. Did he think that he was in the Xuanwu Empire? The 100 Empire ranking was filled with geniuses. Only by gathering together would they be able to survive and become stronger. Tantai Lian stared at Chen Hao's disappearing figure and frowned slightly. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Wasn't he interested in her? Why did he leave just like that? Shortly after, she shook her head lightly and sighed in her heart. Perhaps I'm overthinking. This is even better. I don't have to waste time rejecting him. I'm determined to stand out in the 100 Empire ranking. He's only the number 1 genius of the Xuanwu Empire and is only ranked 673. Then, how strong are the people in the top 10? A faint smile appeared on Tantai Lian's seemingly untainted and otherworldly face. She stared at the names at the top of the pagoda stele with a trace of indescribable emotion in her eyes. Let me do it. Jianping took a deep breath and arrived before the pagoda stele in a flash. Then he pressed his palm down. Although he was as solemn as a mountain, his expression was filled with anticipation and excitement. However, after 5 minutes, there was no miracle. Jianping, who had risen to the peak of second-stage martial ancestor, was only ranked 685. He was 13 places lower than Chen Hao. After that, Yang Fan was ranked 678, Li Yifeng was ranked 742, and Tantai Lian was ranked 1383. She was the last one. After the 4 people finished their tests, the black pagoda stele mysteriously disappeared. The 4 people's expressions became incomparably solemn. Phew! Yang Fan was the first to regain his composure. He let out a long breath and said, Our Xuanwu Empire is only ranked in the middle among the hundreds of empires. Our ranking is worthy of our name. You don't have to be discouraged. Empires that are stronger than us have better cultivation conditions than us. It's normal for them to be stronger than us. However, their cultivation talent might not be stronger than us. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 5 places for each empire. Now, we're already standing on the same starting line. There are still 9 months left. How far we can go will depend on how much we can improve. Speaking until here, Yang Fan suddenly looked at Li Yifeng and said, Chen Hao is right. I also want to train by myself. You take care. After Yang Fan finished speaking, he turned into a gust of wind and instantly disappeared into the horizon. Li Feng cursed at Yang Fan's figure. However, his extraordinarily handsome face revealed a trace of determination. Yes, only when a person experienced a true life and death battle could he break through his limits to the greatest extent. Only Li Yifeng understood the seemingly ordinary Yang Fan, who had no ambition to compete. He didn't compete because he had already reached a certain level and received the same treatment. Standing at the top and shining like the sun was not in line with his character. He was a low-key person who wanted to keep a low profile. Only when he didn't reveal himself would his battle strength be the strongest. Me too. An eye giant pain glanced at Li Yifeng and Tantai Lian and recovered his aura that was as heavy as a mountain. His eyes flashed with a trace of determination as he directly soared into the sky. Wait, all of you have left. What should I do? This. Li Yifeng narrowed his eyes and looked at the beautiful Tantai Lian with a graceful figure. His expression was conflicted. His greatest weakness in life was that he was fickle in everything he did. When it came to beauties, especially beauties like Tantai Lian, his resistance was close to zero. Senior brother Li, I was able to advance to the 100 Empire ranking purely because of luck. You've seen it. I'm ranked last. If someone bullies me, let's train together, okay? I'll try my best not to be a burden to you. It's fine as long as we're in the same area. If I encounter a bad person, just help me. I'll be very grateful to you. Tantai Lian's beautiful eyes stared at Li Yifeng as she spoke pitifully. When Tantai Lian's small hand tightly grabbed Li Yifeng's arm, Li Yifeng's head heated up and he said heroically, "Okay. With me, your senior brother, here, no one can bully you. Let's go." Whoosh! Chen Hao's majestic yuan qi surged out of his body, raising his speed to the peak. His strong physical body did not activate the protective aura qi, but at such a speed, the airflow that should have been like a knife, strangely turned into wisps of cool breeze the moment it neared him, making way for him. During the 3 months, even though Chen Hao had spent the majority of his time helping Helian Wuzi and the others with their cultivation, his cultivation had already reached peak rank 8 Martial Emperor. He was only half a step away from reaching a breakthrough. The only thing he lacked was his origin energy and spirit power. If Chen Hao wanted to forcefully break through, he would naturally be able to do so. However, he would have to consume a large amount of medicinal pellets. At that moment, Chen Hao could be said to be extremely wealthy. Thus, he did not care too much about medicinal pellets. However, Chen Hao did not do that. The reason for that was because he wanted the conditions to flow naturally, and not something that could be accomplished overnight. This was especially true for him, who had fused 2 barriers into one. He could not be careless. Otherwise, the further he went, the more difficult it would be for him to increase his cultivation speed. Chen Hao understood the concept of more haste, less speed. Thus, he had to lay down a firm foundation. His mind was immersed in the true essence of wind. This caused the air resistance to fly to become smaller and smaller, and his speed to become faster and faster. Chen Hao continued to change his body shape. He adjusted the state of every single cell in his body so that his speed would become even faster. After an hour, Chen Hao's mind shook. A dark blue ocean appeared before Chen Hao's eyes. Magnificent waves, vast and boundless blue waves. One could not see the end of the ocean. The surging waves, the whistling wind, and the intense aura of monstrous beasts. Who knew how much danger was contained within? The endless ocean. This was the dangerous training ground that led to the first layer of the 100 Empire ranking. Every disciple that obtained the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking could only enter the next layer of the endless ocean through the teleportation gate in the depths of the ocean. Within the ocean, monstrous beasts roamed freely. There were all sorts of spiritual medicines, treasures, remnants, and inheritances. How much fortune one could obtain would depend on oneself. P.S. Requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you, Brother Tariff, for your 10,000 coins and monthly votes. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you. Continue from Dark Mountain. Chapter 158. Second update. Wushan will continue to work hard. Third update. Brothers and sisters who still have monthly votes, please support Wushan. The pursuers have closed the distance between them in a short day. Please everyone. I really need everyone's support for my new book. Thank you. Hiss. Just as Chen Hao arrived at the edge of the endless sea, a terrifying and irresistible restriction strangely appeared. It directly swallowed the origin energy that Chen Hao released, and he fell from the sky. I can't fly indeed. Chen Hao did not resist and allowed his body to fall into the dangerous sea. The moment he dived into the sea, Chen Hao's mind immediately spread out and blended into the gloomy and cold seawater. His body suddenly turned into a swimming fish and quickly dived down. At the same time, he restrained his own aura and spread out his powerful perception. The endless sea was extremely dangerous. If one wanted to successfully pass through, not only did they need powerful strength, they also needed absolute intelligence. Even the top experts on the Black Tower Steel would not be able to freely move through the endless demonic beasts just by relying on their strength. The demonic beasts here, especially in the core area, were all at the 9th grade martial ancestor realm. Chen Hao was not arrogant enough to fight against demonic beasts at the 9th grade martial ancestor realm. This information was obtained by all the disciples who had obtained the right to enter the 100 Empire ranking when they refined the tokens. It included the map of the Endless Sea with a circumference of tens of thousands of miles, the demonic beasts that appeared in the major areas, the existing spiritual herbs, treasures, historical remains, and so on. Although it was not specific, it was very helpful in reaching the core area of the Endless Sea and passing through this dangerous place. Otherwise, at least half of the disciples would lose their lives in the Endless Sea, not to mention passing through it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. When Chen Hao dived into the sea, the genius disciples from the various dynasties also dived into the sea. Some were alone, some were in groups of 2 or 3, and some were in groups of 3 or 5. Most of the time, the aura of a lone disciple was extremely powerful. They were definitely superior martial ancestor realm. None of them had just entered the martial ancestor realm. Not to mention Chen Hao, who had not even reached the martial ancestor realm. Chen Hao sensed the aura of the demonic beasts under the water and rapidly moved forward. His goal was to use his fastest speed to approach the spatial zone of the ruins that was 3,000 miles away from the edge of the sea. There were countless relics in this area. It was one of the treasure lands that one had to pass through in the Endless Sea. According to the information in the token, as long as the cultivators had enough opportunities and luck, they could enter these relics. The benefits that could be obtained were naturally astonishing. Of course, they had to be able to arrive in time. Otherwise, they would have no chance if all the treasures were snatched up by others. Because of this, Chen Hao did not delay at all after the test was completed and rushed over as fast as he could. However, at this moment, Chen Hao, who had concealed his aura and avoided all the demonic beasts, suddenly felt a huge pressure. The aura of the demonic beasts swept over from all directions. Although it was only the aftermath, it caused a terrifying undercurrent in the depths of the sea. Even Chen Hao was dragged into it. Demonic beast tide? Chen Hao thought in his heart. His eyes shone with a bright light. Immediately, he released his aura again and rushed over at an astonishing speed. The demonic beast tide in the Endless Sea was an existence that could not be avoided. Any cultivator who wanted to go deep had to face it. Unlike the scattered demonic beasts, who could rely on their perception and concealing their aura to avoid it. The aura in front of him clearly indicated that many cultivators were obstructed in the demonic beast tide. For Chen Hao, this was undoubtedly an opportunity to borrow power. Otherwise, it would be 100 times more difficult to kill his way out of the encirclement with his own strength. As Chen Hao gradually approached, the seawater had turned blood red and was filled with a strong smell of blood. With a loud rumbling sound, the seawater was rolling over and over in a terrifying manner. Rays of bright origin power flashed in the water. There were dozens of young men and women who were fiercely hunting the demonic beasts. As for the demonic beasts, what made Chen Hao surprised was that they were actually python-like monsters. Their bodies were covered with scales, each of which was a foot long. When they were all opened up, they were like pieces of sharp blades, ferocious and terrifying. Especially that bloody mouth. As it swallowed and spat, it turned the seawater into a terrifying attack. When it got close, the sharp fangs in its bloody mouth were incomparably sharp. They were like jagged swords, opening and closing wide. They wanted to directly devour a cultivator. If one was bitten, not to mention a martial ancestor, even a martial sage would be directly bitten into pieces. Fortunately, there were countless demonic beasts and they formed an inescapable net. However, the battle strength of each demonic beast was only at the level of an ordinary second-grade martial ancestor. The strength of the cultivators was obviously higher, especially the figures that rushed forward alone. Their cultivation was extremely high. With a flash of their swords, a demonic beast was cut into pieces. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the instant that Chen Hao rushed into their range, the densely packed demonic beasts immediately pounced over. Very good. His eyes flashed. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, 9 cold rays of light shot out as fast as lightning. His body was like a swimming fish, advancing at an even more shocking speed. At this moment, the essence of ancient Chinese martial arts was used to the extreme. Every blade hit a vital point in the demonic beast's head, directly penetrating it. This terrifying hunting speed and advancing speed caused the surrounding cultivators who noticed Chen Hao to reveal a shocked expression. What shocked them even more was that Chen Hao's aura had not even reached the level of a martial ancestor. How was this possible? However, they immediately understood. To be able to obtain the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking, if one did not have the battle strength of a martial ancestor, it was not very possible. However, Chen Hao's battle strength clearly exceeded his cultivation level by too much. That was why the crowd was speechless. Seeing Chen Hao's figure drifting strangely and rushing further and further away at an astonishing speed, many of these cultivators were envious, jealous, and anxious. However, there was nothing they could do. Everyone knew that this was a race against time. Whoever was faster would be the first to reach the area of the ruins. Want to help? Only a fool would help you. This was a competition. It would be a blessing if they did not cause trouble, let alone help. Want to take advantage of the situation? We are holding back so many demonic beasts. Do you want to die if you go first by yourself? Seeing that Chen Hao was about to rush out of the group of demonic beasts and that no one would be able to stop his advance, Chen Hao passed by a youth who was also at the forefront and was madly hunting demonic beasts. Under the protection of his aura, the youth coldly stared at Chen Hao and said loudly. At the same time, without hesitation, he slashed his sword towards Chen Hao. Caught off guard, Chen Hao hurriedly raised the 5 elements golden sword. His eyes flashed with a hint of anger as he swung his sword to meet the attack. Clang! Rumble! The terrifying sword light collided with each other, and Chen Hao was immediately sent tumbling backwards in the surging, blood-red sea water. The energy contained in the young man's sword radiance was several times more than that of Chen Hao. With only one move, Chen Hao's qi and blood surged. He felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. This had something to do with Chen Hao's haste to meet the attack. However, Chen Hao knew that even if he was prepared, the result of the collision would be no suspense. Moreover, the young man was also fighting against the horde of demonic beasts. It was just a casual move. Humph! You don't know what death is. If you are not dead, obediently hunt with us. Otherwise I, Zhou Shao, will kill you first. The young man revealed his own name, and spoke with an arrogant expression. The treasured sword in his hand was like cutting vegetables as he killed the fearless demon beasts. Whenever his sword struck out, there would surely be a demon beast that would be violently chopped into 2. However, the densely packed demon beasts caused his speed to be unable to achieve Chen Hao's swift speed of moving forward like a fish. Zhou Shao, a disciple of the Xiongfeng Empire, a 5th-grade martial grandmaster. Among the 5 disciples of the Great Wind Empire, he was the weakest. During the 3 months he had been home, Chen Hao had received the basic information of all the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking from Mu Qing. Just by looking at his appearance, Chen Hao naturally did not know who he was. However, when the young man revealed his name, Chen Hao's information clearly appeared in his mind. Moreover, the ranking on the Black Pagoda tablet was 164. Chen Hao did not want to cause trouble. However, he did not expect that someone would come looking for trouble at the beginning of his training. Moreover, It was an expert who was hundreds of ranks higher than him. If they were on the ground and there were no demonic beasts, Chen Hao would have to endure it for the time being if he was not an idiot. However, after hearing Zhou Zhao's words, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a cold, murderous intent. Swoosh, swoosh. The 9 flying daggers circled around Chen Hao's body like flickering lights and passing shadows. The heads of the demonic beasts that wanted to take the opportunity to swallow Chen Hao exploded one after another. Chen Hao, however, raised his sword, his figure strangely drifted, and rushed towards Zhou Zhao as fast as lightning. I'd like to see who will kill who. At the same time, Chen Hao's cold voice rippled in the water, causing the cultivators who were gloating to be slightly surprised. Everyone could see that Chen Hao's realm and combat strength were far from Zhou Zhao's. They were not on the same level at all. Being able to break through the demonic beast's encirclement and advance quickly was completely relying on the 9 flying daggers that were controlled to the extreme and the unique movement technique that seemed to be specially cultivated for underwater combat. In everyone's opinion, Chen Hao could only swallow the humiliation, kill the demonic beasts, and slowly break out of the encirclement. However, at this moment, Chen Hao's actions and words were about to compete with Zhou Zhao's. You reckless thing. Originally, I wanted you to be a dog. If you do well, I'll spare your dog life. If you don't, I'll send you to the Western Paradise. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Go to hell. Rorica. Seeing Chen Hao approaching quickly, Zhou Zhao said disdainfully. As he spoke, he slashed out with his sword. Hiss. At this moment, the dazzling sword light was condensed to the extreme and swept horizontally in front of Zhou Zhao. Suddenly, a light curtain appeared in front of Zhou Zhao. Wherever it passed, countless demonic beasts were directly cut into upper and lower halves, as if the sea and everything in front of them were divided into upper and lower halves. It attacked Chen Hao's waist as fast as lightning. Without doubt, if Chen Hao could not block it, he would be cut in half at the waist like the demonic beasts. While Chen Hao was shocked, he roared and instantly pushed his strength to the extreme. At this moment, especially in the water, it was obviously impossible for Chen Hao to dodge the light curtain in a flash no matter how fast he was. He could only face it head-on. At this moment, Chen Hao did not hold back at all. The vigorous Yuanli and spiritual energy merged together, and in an instant, man and sword became one, suddenly turning into a sharp spiral. All the strength was concentrated at the tip, and at an extremely terrifying speed, fiercely drilled out and attacked Zhou Zhao. Second update. Please vote for me. Thank you. Chapter 159. Third update looking for monthly votes. Boom, boom. Seeing that Chen Hao had broken through his aura slash, Zhou Zhao's eyes flashed with surprise. Immediately, his expression became ruthless. He no longer held back and suddenly pushed his strength to the limit. Die. His sword pierced towards the incoming Chen Hao at lightning speed. The brilliant sword light was condensed with the berserk energy of a rank 5 martial ancestor. When the surrounding cultivators saw this scene, they were already certain that this little martial emperor who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth was going to be smashed into pieces by Zhou Zhao's sword. However, boom, 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 a series of violent energy explosions sounded. Chen Hao's body, which seemed to be unaffected by any water waves and was rotating at high speed, was like a hot knife through butter. Zhou Zhao's condensed and terrifying sword light all changed direction and overflowed, still approaching Zhou Zhao with irresistible force. Ding, 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 ding. What was more surprising was that Zhou Zhao, who had pushed his yuan power to the limit, still had time to condense a second attack. Chen Hao, who was one with the sword, had already made contact with Zhou Zhao's treasured sword. Ding, 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 ding. The crisp sound of metal colliding was accompanied by fragments of the broken sword flying out. Boom. The sword pierced through Zhou Zhao's protective qi and directly into his heart. Under the high-speed rotation of the golden sword, a bloody hole as thick as a thigh suddenly appeared. Ah! Zhou Zhao let out a shrill scream in horror. The vitality of his body disappeared in an instant. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Chen Hao with a cold expression. unwillingness, humiliation, anger, regret, all kinds of complicated expressions filled his eyes. Blood had already spilled out of his mouth. With the last of his strength, he said with great difficulty, "Who are you?" asked the king of hell. Chen Hao said coldly. Under the gaze of Zhou Xiao, who was on the verge of death, he reached out and took Zhou Xiao's storage ring. After that, he cleanly smashed Zhou Xiao's head with a punch. Under the stunned eyes of the crowd, he rushed forward like lightning with 9 sharp flying knives revolving around him. What a powerful treasured sword! The crowd who were watching the battle while killing the demonic beasts were all shocked. No one had expected that Zhou Xiao would be the one to die. Aside from being shocked by Chen Hao's methods, what shocked him even more was the golden sword in Chen Hao's hand. Even though there was a huge difference in energy between Zhou Xiao's sword and Chen Hao's, Chen Hao had still managed to slice Zhou Xiao's sword into pieces as if it were tofu. Furthermore, Chen Hao had easily broken through Zhou Xiao's protective aura and killed him. Charge! Charge out! Chase after that brat! In one of the 5-man teams, a youth with a powerful aura transmitted his voice to the other 4. That sword is definitely a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. If I can get my hands on it, I will definitely have a place in the top 10 of the 100 Empire rankings. Moreover, since he has this supreme-grade spiritual weapon, he must have many other treasures. Plus, he just got the storage ring from that idiot. We'll all get some points. It's the law of the jungle. Don't worry about it anymore. If you want to join a powerful sect, you can only do it by hook or by crook. I wonder which empire that disciple is from. He actually has such a treasured sword. He must have a deep relationship with a powerful sect. If you encounter him, you must not provoke him. This sort of person is not someone we can afford to provoke. Even more people were thinking about Chen Hao's identity from the treasured sword that Chen Hao had revealed. A rank 5 martial ancestor realm cultivator had been defeated by him with a single move. They did not have the ability to snatch the treasures. Furthermore, how could someone who possessed such a treasured sword be an ordinary person? Judging from his age, he should be younger than us. The color of his origin power, he should only be a rank 8 martial emperor. There are not many people with such a low cultivation that possess such battle power. I remember, the number 1 empire, the Sky Tyrant Empire, has a rank 8 martial emperor by the name of Leng Yihan. He obtained the qualifications to join the 100 empire rankings. Among the 5 disciples of the Sky Tyrant Empire, he is ranked 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They are all rank 6 martial ancestor realm. However, he's 19 years old. He doesn't seem to be one. There's also a person from the Xuanwu Empire by the name of Chen Hao. He's also a rank 8 martial emperor. He obtained the qualifications to join the 100 empire rankings with the status of number 1. The second is a rank 2 martial ancestor realm. His age doesn't seem to be the same either. He seems to be 17 years old. That Chen Hao is only 15 years old. Leng Yihan. It's very possible. It's impossible for the Xuanwu Empire's Chen Hao to be one of them. The Xuanwu Empire is only a lower-ranked empire. How could they have such a profound background? A top-quality spirit artifact is something that even the inner court disciples of rank 7 and 8 sects cannot possess. Some people's age cannot be determined by their appearance, much less a difference of 1 or 2 years. It's very possible that he's the Sky Tyrant Empire's Leng Yihan. No one knew that although Chen Hao's 5 elements golden swords were very good, in their hands, they were not much stronger than ordinary spirit artifacts. It was only one of the 5 element swords. How could it be a top-quality spirit artifact? Even if the other 4 swords and the dark yellow ring were added, it would at most be a high-quality spirit artifact. A rank 5 martial ancestor realm is nothing more than this. Borrowing strength to fight strength, condensing strength into a point, diverting strength, using strength to the extreme, and then borrowing strength to merge with everything in the world. I can actually kill him so easily. It seems that even I have underestimated my own strength. Chen Hao's lips curled into an excited smile as he thought to himself. In this battle, Chen Hao had originally planned to be seriously injured. He did not expect that the battle would end so easily. Especially this time, it was the first time that Chen Hao had used the mental cultivation method of the carving technique, merging with everything in the world. Although it seemed easy on the surface and the result was equally easy, in the moment of the sparks, Chen Hao was multitasking. His mind was operating at a high level. Not only did he merge himself into the water so that the water did not have any resistance to him, he also used the fastest speed to sense the aura of the sword the moment he came into contact with Zhou Zhao's sword. He directly cut it into pieces like tofu. Then he condensed all the energy in his body into a point and broke through Zhou Zhao's protective qi to kill him. It could be said that if there was a slight mistake in any part, Chen Hao would not have been able to win the battle so easily. However, Chen Hao did not know that in this battle, although he did not announce his name, his real identity was almost guessed. Of course, even if it was guessed, it would not be a big deal. After all, this was an experience where the weak were prey to the strong. Chen Hao also did not know that a genius disciple named Lun Yihan from the Sky Tyrant Empire, which ranked first among the hundreds of empires, had become his scapegoat. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As time passed, more and more cultivators joined the ranks of the first batch of demonic beasts. Although the demonic beasts were densely packed, they were not powerful. Under the horrifying killing of 3,000 to 4,000 cultivators, the number of demonic beasts gradually decreased. Countless disciples with powerful cultivations also took the lead to rush out of the densely packed demonic beasts area and advanced at the fastest speed. Yang Fan, Ni Jianpain, and Li Feng and Tan Tai Lian, who had formed a two-man team, were also scattered among the demonic beasts. Although their cultivation realms were not high, Yang Fan, Ni Jianpain, and Li Yifeng's battle strength was ranked above average. They did not encounter any trouble, but their speed was a little slow. Chen Hao, however, became the vanguard in his area of dozens of miles. He was the first to rush out of the demonic beasts, and with the powerful speed of merging into the water, he avoided the powerful solitary demonic beasts and advanced at an astonishing speed. At the same time, in each area, there were disciples with powerful cultivations who took the lead in breaking through. After half a day, even though Chen Hao had used the special ability of merging into the heavens and earth, which consumed a lot of his spiritual strength and original energy, he finally saw the light of dawn. Far away, hundreds of miles away, the seawater in front of him had been dyed with rays of light. With the movement of the undercurrent, it shone with rays of colorful light. The relic area was finally in front of him. Chen Hao suddenly became energetic again and pushed his speed to the limit. As the distance got closer and closer, Chen Hao, with his keen perception, avoided the demonic beasts emitting powerful auras. Finally, he saw an underwater world shrouded in a layer of powerful bounded domain. It was bumpy, rugged, and there were mountains. These mountains were not tall, but they were undulating. Compared with the mountains on the land, these mountains were extremely strange in shape. Not only were they colorful, but they were also shining faintly. The moment he approached the bounded domain, Chen Hao activated the energy of the token and pressed his palm on the bounded domain. Suddenly, a bright light wrapped around him, and Chen Hao appeared in this magical underwater world. Chen Hao immediately inhaled and exhaled a few mouthfuls of fresh air filled with medicinal fragrance. His eyes shone with excitement as he looked around. This underwater world, like a crystal palace, according to the information recorded, spanned thousands of miles and extended thousands of miles vertically. In addition to countless spiritual herbs and many relics, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was extremely dense. It was the relay station for all the disciples to replenish and recover. As long as they kept a low profile, it would be difficult for them to be attacked by cultivators. Of course, if there were conflicts between empires, it would be hard to say. Just like the information that Mu Qing sent to them, the information of the other empires was simple, but the information of the neighboring empires was very detailed. Including the appearance, realm, and combat strength of every disciple. If they encountered them, they would kill them if they had the strength, and if they did not, they would avoid them. Chen Hao was not surprised that Mu Qing could obtain such information. Every empire had its own intelligence system. If Mu Qing could obtain it, so could the other empires. driven by benefits, which empire did not have a few spies? Do you need help? There are so many spiritual herbs. At this moment, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword's spirit sounded. Ever since Chen Hao did not allow it to appear casually, the treasure-hunting sword spirit would not alarm Chen Hao even if it secretly sensed the periphery. At this moment, the treasure-hunting sword spirit could not resist the strong aura of spiritual herbs. Of course I do. This won't affect my cultivation anyway. In the future, I don't need to remind you of such things. Pick the most precious spiritual herbs and start. Before long, there will definitely be looting. The one who strikes first has the advantage, and the one who strikes last will suffer. Hurry! Chen Hao said straightforwardly. He did not even care about recovering his cultivation. He swallowed hundreds of level 8 spiritual pills and quickly followed the treasure-hunting sword's spirit senses. As for whether one could enter the relics or not, it depended on one's luck. Even the treasure-hunting sword spirit could not sense it, let alone Chen Hao. Therefore he could not force it. Chapter 160. First update, do you still have any monthly votes? Today, there will be a fourth update. I only hope that everyone will vote for Dark Mountain with your monthly votes. Writing requires passion and excitement. After yesterday's single chapter, my brothers and sisters have given Dark Mountain confidence. Thank you. Brothers and sisters, please give Dark Mountain even more passion. Today I will fight. I will fight without stopping for even a moment. Fight for the fourth chapter. Please, my friends who still have monthly votes, vote for Dark Mountain. Right now, I have 12 votes. When the second update comes, can I have 8 more? Elder Wu. He is Chen Hao. The 10th person to enter the ruins is Chen Hao. Auspicious clouds floated in the sky above the core region of the Endless Sea. On each cloud, there was a cultivator sitting cross-legged. There were white-haired old men with youthful faces and young disciples. There were more than 100 of them, and each of them had an extremely powerful presence. At this moment, these cultivators who were standing on clouds and hovering in the air were all staring at the round mirror image that was emitting a faint light about 1,000 feet below them. The scene flashing in the mirror image was the scene when Chen Hao had just stepped into the underwater world. What a pity! When an old man heard the female disciple's words, he was slightly taken aback. Then he sent a message to her as well. His tone carried a hint of helplessness and regret. This female disciple was Dong Fong Ting. Elder Wu, why is it a pity? Dong Fong Ting, who was originally excited, asked with a hint of confusion when she heard the old man's words. The stronger he performs, the harder it will be for us to win him over. With his talent and battle prowess, if he keeps a low profile with your relationship with him, we still have hope. But now, the 10th person to enter the first ruins. Forget about the 6th rank Flying Sword Clan, just look at the expression of Zhu Bo, the outer sect elder of the 7th rank Celestial Pinnacle sect. Besides, there are still 4 6th rank and 2 7th rank sects that have yet to appear. At that moment, the sects that were paying attention to the trials of Chen Hao and the other disciples on the 100 Empire ranking were mostly the 1st to 4th rank sections. The only powerful sects were the 6th rank Flying Sword Clan and the 7th rank Celestial Pinnacle sect. Oh! Dong Fong Ting's expression froze. Then she nodded and stopped talking. However, the expression on her face did not show any signs of depression. In fact, when she mentioned Chen Hao to Elder Wu, she didn't actually want Chen Hao to join the star-picking sect. Instead, she was simply surprised by Chen Hao's performance. Beside Dong Fong Ting and the old man, there were 2 other disciples who were dressed in the same way as Dong Fong Ting. Clearly, they were the disciples that the star-seizing sect had sent to the empires they were related to. There were over 100 cultivators present, but in reality, there were only over 20 sections. Xian Xian, a disciple of the Flying Sword sect not far from Dong Fong Ting, frowned slightly. Obviously, she was starting to worry about Chen Hao's high-profile performance and shocking abilities. He was too dazzling. Even though she was from a rank 6 sect, she was starting to worry. Fortunately, this was just the beginning. As long as her performance wasn't too outstanding and her ranking wasn't very high, she still had a lot of hope. Chen Hao is a little strange. As Chen Hao followed the fluctuations of the treasure-hunting sword spirit and advanced rapidly, the treasure-hunting sword spirit suddenly spoke in Chen Hao's mind. Strange. Our every move seems to be under surveillance. Moreover, I was too excited just now and didn't notice that the aura of the spirit herbs here is extremely varied and of different attributes. So what? That means that the spirit herbs here aren't natural. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so mixed. Those sects must have specially placed them here for you to obtain. That feeling of being watched doesn't exist in the sea. This means that the boundary space we're in now is definitely under the surveillance of those sects. If we go straight for the target and plunder without restraint, I'm afraid we'll attract their attention. You decide for yourself. Hearing the treasure-hunting sword spirit, Chen Hao frowned slightly, but his eyes immediately sparkled. Don't worry so much. Let's not be too deliberate and just go straight to the point. It doesn't make sense if we don't take the benefits that are given to us, Ari. More than 10 minutes later, Chen Hao, who was flying at an astonishing speed, appeared on top of a strangely shaped small mountain. Soon, he arrived in front of a cave halfway up the mountain. There was a thick and strange medicinal fragrance. Chen Hao could clearly sense it without the treasure-hunting sword spirit's reminder. According to the information he had obtained, there were no demon beasts in this area of the ruins. Therefore, Chen Hao did not stop at all and stepped directly into the cave. After going in for 100 meters, a strange small tree appeared before Chen Hao's eyes. It grew out of the hard rock and was only as tall as a person. However, it was filled with boundless vitality. The leaves were actually 3 different colors. On the small tree, there were 36 fruits. They were also 3-colored fruits, and they were the size of a fist. Red, white, and green intersected with each other and looked extremely bewitching and gorgeous. Resurrection fruit? Chen Hao stared at the strange 3-colored fruit, and the information in the tokens suddenly appeared in his mind. There was a trace of surprise on his face as he said, "Good stuff." 36 of them, enough for me to use for a while. The resurrection fruit was the main ingredient in refining the Great Restore Pill. 1 fruit could be used to refine a Great Restore Pill. This kind of pill belonged to the category of pills with special functions. There was a big difference between it and ordinary pills. Ordinary spiritual medicine and pills contained boundless and pure origin energy. It was used by cultivators to refine their origin energy. However, the Great Restore Pill was a spiritual medicine that could allow cultivators below the 6th stage of martial ancestor realm to instantly recover to their peak state. It could completely restore their essence, energy, and spirit. If one directly swallowed the resurrection fruit, they would suffer a little due to the impurities in it. However, the effect would not be inferior to the Great Restore Pill. For someone like Chen Hao who had an abnormal body constitution, there was no difference at all. Chen Hao's palm grabbed the air. Immediately, 36 ripe resurrection fruits turned into a string and flew in front of him. He put 35 of them into the storage space of the Xianhuang ring and directly swallowed one. Boom! The moment the resurrection fruit entered his dantian, Chen Hao's mind shook. Suddenly, a boundless vitality, origin energy, and mental energy magically and violently emerged from his dantian. Accompanied by a pain that was negligible to Chen Hao's exhaustion for half a day began to quickly recover. In just a few minutes, the medicinal power had completely integrated into his body. However, what made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that 1 resurrection fruit could not restore him to his peak state. My body is really abnormal. A 6th stage martial ancestor realm can recover to its peak state, but I can only recover to 90%. Could it be that my absolute power has surpassed that of a 6th stage martial ancestor? Chen Hao thought to himself. He shrugged proudly and said, "I forgot. I haven't seen what good things are in that guy's storage ring." Thinking of this, Chen Hao immediately took out the storage ring that he had obtained from killing Zhou Xiao. Since Zhou Xiao was dead, the aura left in the storage ring had completely disappeared, so Chen Hao could easily refine it. He saw the items in the storage ring and quickly counted them. To Chen Hao's surprise, there were at least 1,000,000 level 8 elixirs. In addition to the elixirs, there were 3 fist-sized crystals that emitted a milky white light. Chen Hao had not seen this kind of thing before, but he could feel that it contained an extremely pure and boundless spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was many times more powerful than a level 8 elixir. Could it be a primordial crystal stone? Chen Hao frowned slightly and guessed. Primordial crystal stone was something that could only be used after entering the innate realm, which was the martial saint realm. The bodies of disciples below the martial arts grandmaster realm could not bear the violent energy contained in it. Even the masters of the innate realm were only willing to use it when breaking through the barrier. It was extremely precious. Although the energy was violent, it was extremely pure. It could be used directly without a lot of refining. It was undoubtedly the best treasure for breaking through the barrier. It could condense the most powerful energy in a short period of time. It's a primordial crystal stone. It seems that the disciples of these powerful empires are indeed not comparable to your Xuanwu Empire. The wealth of any one of them is comparable to several of yours. The treasure-hunting sword spirit said, Chen Hao, how about killing a few more? It's faster than me taking you to find elixirs. That's a good idea. But I, Chen Hao, am not a murderous devil. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If they want to die, I don't mind killing them and taking their treasures. Well, let's continue. By the way, do you think the relics here were specially set up by the masters of those sects? Otherwise, why would they be concentrated in this area? It must be. Although I can't sense the existence of the relics, there's no ancient aura here. Rather than calling it a relic, it's better to say that it's a space specially condensed for you to improve. If I'm not wrong, the 100 Empire ranking competition that happens every 2 years must pass through the Endless Sea. How can there be so many elixirs and relics appearing repeatedly? Hearing the treasure-hunting sword spirit's words, Chen Hao pondered for a moment before setting off again. After walking out of the cave, he directly flew into the air. He seemed to be walking aimlessly, but the range was very small. He was still moving quickly in the direction that the treasure-hunting sword spirit sensed. It's that kid. Far away, 5 figures were flying in the air. After seeing Chen Hao flying in the air, one of the youths immediately exclaimed in surprise. Follow him. This kid has a treasure sword. The 5 of us have to work together to easily kill him. Otherwise, even I would have to put in a lot of effort. These 5 people were the disciples who had evil intentions after seeing Chen Hao kill Zhou Xiao. Among them, the disciple who wanted to obtain Chen Hao's treasure sword to enter the top 10 of the 100 Empire ranking had a cultivation of rank 7 martial ancestor realm. As for the other 4, 2 were rank 6 martial ancestor realm and 2 were rank 5 martial ancestor realm. With such a lineup, it was not hard to imagine that they were definitely one of the empires that ranked extremely high in the 100 Empire ranking. They were even more powerful than the Xiongfeng Empire that Zhou Xiao was from. Any one of these 5 people would be considered an expert in the 100 Empire ranking. Not to mention that they were united. As for this team, it was obvious that they had the mentality of killing and robbing. That was why they were acting like this. Otherwise, how could they not fly alone? In reality, that was indeed the case. Not only did they have the mentality of killing and robbing, but they would also kill experts that might cause competition when they saw them. Such people existed in every 100 Empire ranking. However, there were not many of them. When the 5 people discovered Chen Hao, whose cultivation was far inferior to theirs, discovered their existence almost at the same time. Chen Hao had an impression of these 5 people. They were the ones he had seen when he was fighting against Zhou Xiao. They were also at the forefront. Furthermore, they were the strongest team among all the cultivators at that time. Wushan, continue to fight. Today we will explode. Begging for monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Vote for Wushan. Thank you. Chapter 161. Second update. Dark Mountain will continue to fight for the third and fourth updates. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes and recommendation votes, please vote for Dark Mountain. It was not surprising that these 5 people could appear near Chen Hao. After all, they had rushed over together with Chen Hao. Moreover, their strength was obvious. It was natural for them to arrive so quickly. Therefore, Chen Hao did not care. His body moved as fast as lightning, following the waves in his mind and disappearing into the horizon. Something is not right. More than 10 minutes later, Chen Hao entered a valley surrounded by mountains. In front of him appeared hundreds of level 9 elixirs that contain the energy of the 5 elements. Chen Hao's body suddenly froze. He frowned slightly and a trace of seriousness appeared on his calm face. At the same time, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit sounded in Chen Hao's mind. This. Just as Chen Hao stopped and looked up at the sky, 5 people suddenly broke through the air. The distance of thousands of meters was instantly crossed. The fastest person directly shot out a sharp sword light that shot out from a distance of hundreds of meters. It seemed to tear through the void and emitted a terrifying pressure. It directly locked onto Chen Hao's vital point on his back. The sudden attack made Chen Hao's expression change. He quickly turned around, but the terrifying sword light was already in front of him. There was no way to avoid it. At this critical moment, although Chen Hao was shocked by the opponent's powerful cultivation, he did not panic at all. With a thought, the powerful merged energy condensed into a point in front of him. At the same time, with a loud bang, his feet exploded and his body flashed back. Boom! With a loud bang, the energy shield that Chen Hao had condensed collapsed. The terrifying sword light only paused for a moment and slowed down a little. Then, it once again chased after Chen Hao. It was a long story, but in fact, it was only a moment. However, this little bit of time was enough for Chen Hao. Whoosh! When Chen Hao's explosively retreating figure was about to be caught up by the sword light again, he actually turned into a wisp of wind and fluttered away from the sword light's attack. At this moment, people from the other 4 directions rushed over as fast as lightning. You want to kill me? Chen Hao's figure drifted like a ghost, causing all the attacks to miss. Terrifying explosions sounded around him, but his cold voice rang out. Pa pa! The 5 silhouettes landed one after another within 100 feet of Chen Hao. The youth who had come first, with Chen Hao as their leader, actually smiled and clapped his hands. The true essence of wind, you do have some skills. However, just based on this, it's not enough. Brat, if you don't want to die, then obediently hand over that sword and I can let you live. Who are you people? Chen Hao sensed an enormous dangerous aura. Chen Hao had already noticed the cultivations of these 5 people. None of them were inferior to Zhou Xiao, especially the person who spoke. His aura was incomparably powerful and unfathomable. Crystal Jade Empire, you should know about it, right? Don't try to resist, it's useless. If you were a rank 5 martial ancestor realm cultivator, then there would be a glimmer of hope. Unfortunately, you're only a rank 8 martial emperor. You've only grasped the true essence of wind. It's nothing much, we'll just have to expend a bit more effort. In that case, you'll die very miserably. I'll obediently hand over the sword and I, young master you, will guarantee your safety. What do you think? Crystal Jade Empire, the 15th ranked empire among the several hundred dynasties. Sure enough, it's a place where the strong prey on the weak. What a big empire, what high cultivations. Unfortunately, they're all shameless scoundrels who kill and rob. If you have the ability, then come and take it. Information about the Crystal Jade Empire immediately appeared in Chen Hao's mind. He was still as swift as the wind, but a wisp of coldness and awe-inspiring coldness appeared on his handsome face. He spoke with disdain and disdain. Yu Wuqing, rank 7 martial ancestor realm, the number 1 genius of the Crystal Jade Empire. People called him Young Master Yu. This year's 100 Empire ranking, he was a peak expert who had hopes of entering the top 10. He was ranked high up on the Black Pagoda Monument, 17th. As for the other 4 people, 2 were rank 6 martial ancestor realm and 2 were rank 5 martial ancestor realm. This was the information Chen Hao obtained after learning of their identities. Just as Chen Hao's words left his mouth, a gale suddenly rose within a circumference of 100 meters. His drifting figure immediately truly merged with the wind. At the same time, surging smoke began to fill the air. It was the aura of the 5 elemental energy, darkness and mist. Not only that, Chen Hao also displayed his mental state of merging with the myriad of things in the world, multitasking. Chen Hao did not have any confidence in facing experts who were above his level, and there were as many as 5 of them. However, there was no way out. Not to mention that Chen Hao would not hand over the treasured sword. Even if he did, the other party would definitely not give him any way out. This kind of bullshit might be able to fool a child, but it was impossible to fool Chen Hao. The only thing Chen Hao could do was to break out of the encirclement and contend with the other party. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Kill him. Yu Wuqing originally thought that since Chen Hao had spoken, he must be afraid. However, he did not expect that Chen Hao, a mere martial emperor, would actually not give in. The reason why he did not attack forcefully was because he saw that Chen Hao had comprehended the true essence of the wind attribute. Then, he thought of the incomparably sharp supreme-grade spiritual sword in Chen Hao's hand. If he wanted to kill Chen Hao, it would probably be very troublesome. It was even possible that the other 4 people would be injured. However, at this moment, he could no longer have any misgivings. As Yu Wuqing spoke, the 5 people attacked at the same time. Taking a step forward, tyrannical origin energy fluctuations suddenly surged out. The 5 of them brandished their swords at the same time. Countless incomparably sharp sword lights actually joined together from 5 directions like an inescapable net, condensing into a combined sword formation to attack. Clearly, the 5 of them had already undergone training before coming to participate in the ranking of 100 dynasties. The moment they attacked, it was an unavoidable killing move. Chen Hao, who had merged into the wind, narrowed his eyes abruptly. Even he did not expect that the 5 of them could actually form a sword formation to attack. Originally, Chen Hao thought that although he could not defeat the encirclement of the 5 experts, with the true essence of the wind attribute and the ability to merge with everything in the world, finding an opening to break out of the encirclement would not be a problem. It might even be possible to kill one of the weaker opponents. However, at this moment, the dense sword lights that came from all directions were simply unavoidable. So what if he had the wind attribute and was faintly discernible? The other party's attack was omnidirectional. There were no gaps. A trace of determination flashed in the depths of Chen Hao's eyes. Instantly, a resplendent rainbow light shone from between his brows. At the same time, the few remaining 5 elemental spiritual pills and more than half of the more precious 5 elemental spiritual crystals burned fiercely in the Xianhuang ring. It was painful, but there was no other choice. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 5 spiritual swords of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth instantly escaped from the Xianhuang ring at a terrifying speed. In an instant, the majestic and terrifying 5 elemental energy condensed around Chen Hao to form a light screen formed by the 5 swords. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying explosion sounded. The 5 elemental light screen forcibly blocked all the sword lights that were flying towards them. At the same time, a fierce light flashed in Chen Hao's eyes. With a bang, under the protection of the 5 elemental light screen, he swept towards a 5th-grade martial grandmaster as fast as lightning. His attack was swift and fierce. Accompanied by the swift and fierce sword light, the 5th-grade martial grandmaster instantly panicked. He had personally seen how terrifying Chen Hao's sword was. If Chen Hao got close to him, he was afraid that he would end up like Zhou Xiao. Even if the other 4 could take advantage of this gap to kill Chen Hao, so what? At that time, he was afraid that he would be deader than dead. Therefore, the 5th-grade martial grandmaster was only stunned for a moment before he desperately tried to dodge to the side. The 7-colored light disappeared, the wind whistled, and smoke filled the air. The moment Chen Hao rushed out of the encirclement of the 5 people, he disappeared completely. Immediately after, a cool breeze blew. Even though the five people's cultivation was much higher than Chen Hao's, they were unable to lock onto Chen Hao's aura. Fuck brat, just you wait. Boom, 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 boom. The five people's violent energy blasted everywhere. Yu Wuqing's angry voice was filled with shock as he shouted loudly. No one would have thought that Chen Hao's sword was not a sword, but a set of 5 elemental combination spiritual weapons. The terrifying 5 elemental strength that was displayed in that instant was something that even Yu Wuqing's full power attack might not be able to break through. Not to mention, the 5 people had unleashed a wide-range attack in order to prevent Chen Hao from escaping. Bang! The furious Yu Wuqing smashed his fist through the air. The small mountain 100 feet away instantly exploded with a rumble. His expression was cold as he stared at the 5th-grade martial grandmaster who had dodged Chen Hao's attack. He angrily scolded, "Bastard, why are you dodging? Senior brother Yu, if I don't dodge, I'll definitely die." "Definitely die? Do you believe that I won't kill you right now?" Yu Wuqing said coldly as he grabbed the 5th-grade martial grandmaster's neck. After strangling him for half a minute, when blood flowed from the corner of the 5th-grade martial grandmaster's mouth, he threw him away as if he was throwing away a dead dog. "Next time, if anyone dodges again, I will personally behead that person." Who? Without any warning, before Yu Wuqing could finish his sentence, he suddenly screamed with a terrified expression. At the same time, his body flashed as he violently activated the energy in his body. In that instant, he felt as if he was on the verge of death and his hair stood on end, causing him to explode with all his strength. However, even so, an arrow of blood still shot out from the side of his neck. He was unable to completely dodge the silent attack. Boom, boom, boom. Yu Wuqing seemed to have gone mad as he frantically activated 5 layers of earth energy. At the same time, sword light flashed continuously as he attacked in all directions. This sudden change caused the other 4 people to widen their eyes in horror. They felt as if they were being targeted as prey, causing them to instantly make the best choice. Like Yu Wuqing, they activated several layers of protective earth energy. 7th-grade martial grandmaster, you're good. Watch your dog heads carefully. I'll come and take them at any time, ha. Only his voice could be heard, but he was nowhere to be seen. Chen Hao's cold and arrogant voice and loud laughter gradually drifted into the distance. Including Yu Wuqing, the faces of the 5 people were terrifyingly gloomy, and there was a strong sense of fear on their faces. Monthly votes. Requesting monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Urgently needed. Thank you very much. Also, thank you, Brother Tariff, for the 10,000 coins reward yesterday. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.